block it around the inside of it. So they had nowhere to
Hey,
take that.
I am not animal
What
control.
happens, the water got to that point, she called the edges all the way around it.
Told the call dispatch.
Yeah.
Did she call
Well, I
you?
didn't listen.
She called it out.
So you did what?
Called it in for.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fun.
figure out.
You walk right through it, boom. Randy fell twice today.
She called City Hall. I'm like,
That's crazy.
Yeah, we got a call from her on Saturday, and then we got an electronic complaint through the online system.
What's up, buddy?
I want to go this
Today in
way.
paradise?
It's Monday.
It's Monday somewhere.
Good times.
Peter, how we doing, buddy?
Good.
With us?
Good to go.
We got like about another minute.
Close.
Close enough? Ready to rock and roll? Tammy has to turn on the, did you already turn it on?
Everything is on. I haven't started the recording yet.
Okay, let me know when you want to start.
Tammy's items, my items.
"Is your bottle of water ready?"
This conference
I got
will
Tammy's
now be
water. I
recorded.
switched to Crystal Light now. Gotta get some flavor.
How are you? Oh, I got my phone. I got my personal phone. I don't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, she's a good guy.
I'm just think- yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
No, we have a list of people, I think, but.
I bet you do. I bet, yeah.
All right, we're ready when you are.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today, May 17th.
Can you pull that
meeting?
microphone?
And please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, you did. You tripped me up. All right.
Oh, you did. Sorry.
Roll call,
Sorry about
please.
that.
Councilmember Bellinger,
Here?
Krumik, Swift,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Legero,
Here.
and Mayor Alves.
Here, thank you. We're going to start off the evening with a presentation to Mrs. Swass. Boy, I haven't seen that name in a while. I always call her Mrs. Swass because I grew up with her son, Evelyn Betty Swass. Interesting. All right, well, I'm going to read this for you, and then we're going to give her the proclamation in addition to a city medal. Okay.
A little louder.
Little louder. Okay, we'll do stereo. There we go. This certificate of special recognition is awarded to Evelyn, is it Betty? Betty Swass, in honor of your dedication to make Escalon a better place to live. I thank you for the almost decade of volunteering your time to the Escalon Historical Museum, using your talents and amazing memory to enhance everyone's visit. You are known around Escalon as a committed, caring person who will drop anything to help their neighbor, and we can only hope to leave such an imprint on the city as you have. Mariette Alves. Yeah, that's true. You're one of the original Escalonians. It's fun to see these people come in here and getting honored for the things they've done for our community. Mrs. Swass has been around for a while, and I've known her and her family forever. It takes you back a long ways when you think about these people, because you grew up with their kids and you went to school with them. It's been a while. But thank you for everything you do for Escalon. You've always been a dedicated Escalonian, and we've always appreciated it. Thank you. All right.
She is celebrating 90 and a half years.
Oh, get out of here. Really?
Wow.
Wow.
Pretty good.
All right. We're going to go to the consent calendar now. These items are considered routine by nature and will act upon a single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for a special consideration. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Mayor Alves, regarding item number 6, I will be abstaining from voting on the entire item.
Okay.
If the item is pulled, then I will be leaving the room
Very
during discussion
good.
of that item.
I will, Mr. Mayor, I'll also be stepping away from items 7 and 8
7 and 8.
unless pulled.
Oh, that's right, huh? Yeah. And you're gonna do 6, Robert?
And on Belterra.
So is anybody be here to vote, or we're all gonna leave?
So they can, as long as the items are not pulled, they can stay in the room. They're just abstaining from the vote on those
Okay.
items.
And you had number 3, I
And,
believe.
item number 3, I just need to make a change in the resolution
Okay.
from the $151,765 to $143,655. There are updated projections for the street, funds today that were received.
Perfect. Okay, given it as it may be, do we have a motion?
You need to take them one at a time.
Do we have to take them one at a time?
No.
No, we can take the whole big ones.
Yeah.
I would move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Carries 5-0. Very good. Let's move on to the next item here. Let's see. We have, it looks to be staff communications.
Yes, so Mayor and Council, in your agenda packet tonight was the monthly reports from each of the departments, the Treasurer's Report, Police Department, Animal Control, Recreation, Development Services, Building, Public Works, Water Department, Wastewater, a project update, and then also our Citizens Advisory Committee quarterly update. And staff is available to answer any questions that any council member may have on that item, or on any of those items, I should say.
Okay, is there any questions for staff on those items? Seeing none, I guess we're
All
gonna
right.
go ahead. and
So
move
we have some other, or staff communications, and I know a couple of the managers have a couple of things too. Just an update on the swimming pool. We did have some talks with the school district last week, and they are paying for the vacuum that was needed to finish the cleaning of it.
Good.
And they are giving us, they are reducing our billing by some staff hours too.
Good.
So, we were able to work that out with them. And then, just a heads up, we have received a notice from our contractor that handles the landscaping in the Westwood district. So we will be going out to rebid that district. That district has had a couple raises in the landscape contracts since the inception of that district, so hopefully it won't be as big a jump as we've seen in Bellaterra and the States. I put a copy of the updated sales tax survey for the council, and our intention is to put that out with the July 1st utility billing. That will include a postage paid envelope, and staff did confirm the conservative annual revenue estimate to be $326,000 annually, and that's been clearly identified in the survey, as well as that the senior discount would be for approximately 9 years. And the language was added that sales tax is paid by all who make purchases within the city.
And traveling through the city.
Well, so anybody who makes a purchase in the city, yeah.
Okay.
So, staff has been working on the budget, and I wanted to schedule the budget workshop. My initial proposal was gonna be June 14th, but I've since learned of one of our council members who would not be available on that date. Would the council like to have a workshop prior to our June 7th meeting at 6 o'clock for the budget, and then adopt at the June 14th meeting? Or June 21st meeting, I apologize.
Shall we take a straw poll, or how do you wanna do it?
Yeah,
Okay, gentlemen, how do you feel about that?
Works for me.
That seems to work.
Anybody opposed? Looks like we're going for it.
okay, so June 7th at 6 PM will be a budget workshop then.
Not 6th, okay.
And then I wanted to advise the council, our solar projects are due to start at the at the beginning of June, the second week of June, which will include fencing off parking at the community center where the canopies are going, at the library,
What is that gonna be again, please? I
the
lost it.
solar projects.
Oh, okay, good, okay.
And that includes here in our parking lot, which means I am going to have to ask some of the RVs to move. Initially, I thought it was gonna be 4, but I got some mapping today that makes me think I may need to ask more RVs to move. And
Can we reposition them anywhere on our property, or do we have to move them
no,
out completely?
so we don't know of any way to do it here on this property. What we have did is, we're in talks with P&L about allowing them to park on our property. The problem with it is the only access there is when P&L gates are open. So we're working with them, trying to work through if there's somehow we can, work through that. It's supposed to be about a 6-week project. So just a heads up, I will be contacting those that have RV spaces back there, but we are trying to, that is my one option. My other option is if we allowed them to use our overflow parking that's next to the Escalon feed, that gravel lot.
That might be an idea too.
And then have them just put like a permit in their windows so
They're gonna-
that people understand it's not.
The stumbling block would be the accessibility, that's gonna be the problem.
Yes, that's the problem with the P&L, so, or with our lot that's behind P&L
So timing wise, when does baseball end for the community center?
I believe it is the first Saturday of June or maybe even the end of May. So
So that won't
the
be enough.
timing should be perfect where I could utilize that parking lot if I needed to.
I'm just saying, if you have anybody at the community center, any events at the community center, and those are blocked off, well, the obvious place for them to go would be the overflow. That's the only thought.
We don't have any events at this time because
Oh.
of regulations, so.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then just to give you guys an update on the wastewater treatment plant, I am about done, well, I actually have gone through and put together the request for proposal for engineering of the plant. And I'm just waiting for some feedback from wastewater treatment plant staff, before I send that out, but, it's anticipated it should go out this week or the first of next week. And then it would be due back in the middle of July, and then potentially be awarding it sometime in September. I will prepare you that based on conversations between NG and PACE, they are telling me the cost for engineering services could be potentially $1.4 million.
Whoa,
So,
that's just for the engineering.
that's just for the engineering of the project.
ridiculous.
So I hope it's wrong, but I'm just, we'll have to be looking at that.
You know, you think.
So, I know, Justin, you had an update for the council, regarding Highway 120 and Caltrans?
I do. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, council. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, Nick Preachard, he works with Juliana and Cole, our contract engineer. We were able to meet with Caltrans, a team of 10 of them, in the Napa parking lot to talk about the issues we've been having on 120, amongst a few other things I wanted to talk to him about. After meeting with them, we expressed all the issues, like all you guys can see there. Everything's buckling. We've got paint stripes that are moving. The reason for that, what was explained to me, was they have so much money allocated for certain cities, and they need to get in and out of cities without any kind of improvements. So when they do that, they go through Escalon. They got through quick, putting a slurry seal down. What happens is when the contractor goes through there, puts down slurry, there's areas in the roadway that happen to be deeper, but they're not allowed to do a change order or to repair that road. They're just able to fill it in with slurry seal. After they did that, what had happened now is there was too many areas that needed to be repaired, and that's why we're getting a lot of this buckling, why we're getting the separation, and why we're getting paint lines to be moved. They accepted responsibility of it. They said it didn't turn out exactly the way they wanted to. So what the plan is for Caltrans at the moment is, anytime now possibly this week or next week. They are going to be coming in periodically and spot patching each issue through 120 just to make what we have now better. But they have a project and plan for a couple million, I think it is. They are actually going to be coming in within the next 2 years, and they are going to repave through Escalon from basically the tracks at Taco Bell up to David Drive through Escalon with ADA improvements and all gutter and curbing improvements that will be needed to happen at that time. When I did meet with them, I brought up the crosswalk issue that was brought up a couple of weeks ago about how when they're getting in the crosswalk and then trucks are coming around, they assured me that they would address that somehow as far as more signage, more lighting, or relocating the corner once again. They're going to look at that and try to address that in this project if it's a big construction issue for them to do. And then I also brought up the trees to Caltrans. And they don't like the trees either. They're trying to get rid of the trees, but for some reason they're not able to get rid of the trees. So they told me to hang tight and keep wanting the trees removed. So
Which trees?
that's where we are
Just
with
trees along
Caltrans
the
right
highway.
Uh,
Specifically, probably like between Second and Third or some of the
now.
heavier.
Yes, exactly.
Those
Around
eucalyptus
Second,
trees.
Brayton Street, Third
Those are
Street, the
monsters.
visibility coming to the
Try digging those
limit
out.
line is just very, very hard for people to see, as you know.
Justin, who wants the trees there?
I'm sorry, say that again, Mr.
Yeah,
Swift?
who wanted the trees there still?
No, nobody wants them, even Caltrans. They just cannot get the approval to remove them.
Oh.
So probably another state agency is holding them up from the
Yeah.
removal of the trees, environmental of
Pull
some
those
sort.
trees out, it's gonna be major.
It's environmental that's holding them
A lot
up.
of work on each one of
A
those.
sycamore is environmental.
Oh, yeah. But as a spider.
But I will definitely stay on Caltrans. I've been in contact with Walt Merkin because I know that he's been addressing this since he's been on council. So he's aware of what's going on. If there's something that you guys need at all, please get a hold of me because I feel like I've got good contacts and I'm able to reach somebody and get some answers fairly quickly.
Thank you. Chief, do you have something tonight?
No, I don't.
Okay, and Dominique, I know you have some stuff.
Thank you. I have a few items. The first one being the Liberty Business Park specific plan update. I know we spoke about that a few meetings ago, and we had somebody interested in moving forward with a project on 12 acres located in that plan. Staff has reached out to the company that created that plan and asked for a quote to do both a minor update to it, which would be including an update into that plan specifically for that use or project, and then also a quote on the possibility, if council is interested, on amending that plan. As you recall, that plan was adopted in November of 2007. That was shortly before the recession hit. The city appears, in a lot of staff's opinion, to be in that position to where if that was something we'd be wanting to move forward with, we're in that, now would be the time if it's something we're interested in. So we'll get back to you with that information as soon as it's received. Last meeting, we had a resident approach the council regarding installing a handrail at their mother or mother-in-law's property over on Yosemite Avenue. If you may recall, about 2 years ago, we did receive a request for a blue curb in front of that house. It was the same property owner. At that time, staff had looked into it. We looked into blue curb policies and moving forward with some type of policy, and it was brought forth to the council, and at that time, the council did not want to move forward with establishing a blue curb policy. That the property, specific to that property, does not have sidewalks in it, which makes it difficult to add a handrail and/or a blue curb because of the lack of sidewalks. That area is in the public right-of-way, which is supposed to be free of any obstructions and available for people to walk through that area as opposed to having to step out into the street to walk down the street. So we did inform the property owner or the person that came to the last meeting that we would not be able to make that change or allow a handrail at that time. It's also listed in our in our public or as a designated nuisance, that any obstructions that are within the public right-of-way or a public easement are not allowed. So I wanted to give you an update on that.
Before you move on, Dominique,
Sure.
how long is that stretch there that has no sidewalk?
150 feet.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell
150
you.
feet, so that's 30 yards. No, 150 feet would be 50 yards, 50 yards.
And
So
we
what's the-
did discuss like the installation of sidewalks.
What's the
We've been
cost?
working, I wouldn't be able to tell you offhand.
30 feet.
Maybe Justin might be able to provide an estimate, but I wouldn't be able to tell you. But we have been prioritizing areas that are near schools. As you saw in the last few weeks, we could just completed a project on the other side of Yosemite in front of Dent Elementary with the missing sidewalk. So that area is a priority to be installing sidewalks in. We're trying to get all of them in where the
How
schools
much
are
area
located.
did you do over there?
I don't recall offhand.
That was it could have been similar to that area, and that was about $26,000.
For 150 feet of,
It could have been a little bit longer. I don't really know for sure, but it was about a block or 2 blocks.
Wasn't
so,
that large of an area, yeah.
$26,000.
Yeah.
That's robbery.
If you do a blue curb there, there's no restriction. Anybody that has a handicap placard would be able to park in that spot. Ultimately
Correct.
end up blocking,
Yes.
so.
Okay, the gentleman in the audience would like to respond. Is it proper for us to bring him up at this time?
Not at this time, you could do that up during public comments.
During public comment. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so, wow, 26,000. Man, that's a ton of money.
And so
All
that
right.
was the issue we ran into 2 years ago, was because the area does not have the sidewalks, we weren't able to put the blue curb in. And so we had informed the resident that if they wanted the potential to be able to do a blue curb, if the council moved forward with the policy, the sidewalks would need to be put in. And so then this is a separate request, asking for a handrail instead, but the handrail being put in towards the curb or the street
Has to have a sidewalk.
provides, well, it's actually in the public right-of-way, so when somebody's walking around that corner, you don't want them walking in the street, and they would have to go either in the street or around the
The rail.
property to get around the rail,
So do we have any of the alternatives that we can do?
But they could put the rail outside of it, that,
Outside
not
of the
within the first right of way.
Which
They
is-
just couldn't do it all the way to the curb, about 4 feet.
That's what I said, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I figured, yeah,
Is-
okay.
Is there anything that the homeowner could possibly do? Obviously, we're not gonna get the sidewalk tomorrow out there. Pour, basically where their walkway would be, where they wanna put that rail, figure out what the dimensions are of, 6 foot of concrete, or 6 foot by whatever depth of the sidewalk, pour the sidewalk, level it out where it would match where Justin would put it, and then from that point up to their house, they could put a rail. So they're out of the public right of way.
So the rail
Are they
still
allowed
would
to
not,
pour?
the rail would still not be able to go in
edge
the
of
sidewalk
Not
area?
into the sidewalk, no, to
Yeah.
the edge of the sidewalk.
So they could put the rail in still without having the sidewalk. They just can't
They just
put
have
it all the way to the
There's a certain
curb.
point where they're gonna have to stop, but
Correct.
before
yeah.
they did that, if they were to pour a small patch of sidewalk on their own, is that allowed?
They
Oh.
have a walkway from the curb up to.
No, but if they were to pour
Right.
sidewalk to do the blue curb also,
Or that as well, yeah.
yeah.
Are they
They
allowed?
They
are homeowners
could.
Yeah.
Homeowners are allowed to do that.
Correct.
And they allow that to happen within certain guidelines?
Yes,
We do,
yeah, they
yeah.
meet that, they need to meet our standards,
Okay,
yeah.
I was
My
just
question
trying to
is, it
figure
gonna be is there a minimum they can pour, or?
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah,
Well, we don't technically, well, go ahead.
I mean, let's suppose they
We
would,
typically
let's
have them pour
suppose
that side, so the whole property does not have sidewalk, and you'd have them pour the side
of
that
what?
they have.
The whole,
The
their
side
property?
Of their
along
property.
Yosemite.
Well, that's quite a ways.
And
That's what I was thinking, they could just have 6 or 8 foot where their walkway is
that,
to the road,
yeah,
leveled the right angle that we want,
I get it.
and then their walkway attaches to that, and from that point to their property, they could put a handrail in for safety reasons for them.
But we're not allowing them to do a section like that according to. what
That's my
Yeah,
question.
she just said there has to be the whole coverage of the front of their property,
I can
which,
double check with our engineer, but typically if we have somebody put in, I mean, we haven't had it come up where we've only had a property owner
Wanna
put in a
put a
portion of
section.
their sidewalk.
Or
They
two
usually
small
put in
sections of sidewalk
the
to make-
entire portion, yeah.
But there's an existing sidewalk from the curb all the way up to the house.
A
right?
walkway,
There's a
correct.
walkway.
Yeah.
So
Theoretically, they could put a permanent handrail all the way down to that 4 feet to the curb.
within that point, yes.
They can have a removable section that they could put in when they need it and then pull it out when they're done.
Talking about the
That's a
sidewalk?
good idea.
I think
No,
the
a
issue
4-foot
that,
section that
that's-
they could just
It-
slide it open or close it, or.
the issue that
No,
the gentleman brought up was that
I thought.
the-
Of what?
getting
4 foot
over
of
the
what?
curb though, right,
Oh,
was
okay.
the kind of pivotal point, getting over that front part is where he wanted, is that correct, right? Getting up onto, it's not necessarily from the 4 feet up, it's so.
It's the slope.
So, right, he's probably looking to do a handrail from the street.
Right.
Correct.
Which we
Yeah,
couldn't.
and that's what we,
But that's a great suggestion about a removable, if the holes are covered back up, cause, I mean,
Where they're not a hindrance.
yeah, when they're not a hindrance, yes.
That makes sense. Maybe we could work along the lines of that, where we could work with him. and-
Because maybe you could do a hinge on the pole, so that it hinged out and
Yeah.
had like a temporary foot that
Where it
went
could lock
down, where
out.
you weren't putting any holes in that right-of-way area.
That's an
What
idea.
about, I don't know, maybe that's just what you brought up, but what if there was, like from the street up to the property, is it possible to put in something that, and maybe that's what we just talked about, like a gate or something, like, so you could open it so that people could go through, but when you needed to close it, it would create that handrail?
You'd have like a-
Right, yeah, that's similar to what we're talking
It's like
about,
with a
yeah.
cam, where it drops in, when it locks in, when you're using it and you back it off, it locks the other way.
Yeah,
It's just a 4-foot section.
It's just keeping it out of the right-of-way,
Public domain.
yeah,
Well, those are things we could probably think about dealing with, and when it gets to public input, maybe we'll get some more ideas.
Okay.
So what else do we got?
okay, and so then I have an update on senior housing projects. So we've had a few meetings on it. It's something that staff has been working on, with help of council members for almost 2 years now, from the very beginning. And so with all of the process that we've been doing and the meetings we've been having and discussions we've been having, the Housing Authority of County of San Joaquin came in last week and spoke to city staff. They are proposing an affordable housing project. They have tentatively named it Irwin Village. It's a construction of 12 single-story fourplex buildings consisting of 11 one-bedroom clusters and 1 four-bedroom cluster, which is a total of 48 units. One of the 4-bedroom units will be a manager's unit, a community room that will, there will be a community room that will incorporate a property manager's office, an open community area, and laundry facilities. And the unit sizes for 1 bedrooms are plus or minus 500 square feet, 2 bedrooms would be plus or minus 700 square feet. Because this project is through the County of San Joaquin, through the Housing Authority, and they are proposing it to be 100% affordable housing project, it does fit the state mandate through SB 35 for streamlining of affordable projects or affordable housing. And so under those guidelines, which staff has tried their best to familiarize themselves with it in the last week as much as we can, because we don't get a lot of affordable projects that come in. It is a ministerial action where they apply for approval. It does not come to council, and it can only go to planning commission for design review or architecture of the outside buildings. So they have indicated to us that they will be applying to the state for tax credits, and they're trying to meet that July 1st deadline. And so we have advised them that we would try to work with them on trying to meet that deadline as best as we can, which obviously if we don't have to go to boards for the approval because it's state mandated, it should be much quicker, hence the
Who is the
streamlining.
individual or group?
Housing Authority of San Joaquin,
Housing Authority
and they're
of San-
working with DFA, which is the group that we had originally spoken to.
The ones that did the one in Manteca.
Correct.
Do they have the property? How would that purchase happen?
It sounds like they have the property enough to be able to apply for the tax credits. I don't believe it's been officially sold.
they don't
It's
have to-
probably on a contingency.
They don't have to have the city council approval,
They don't have to have the city council
so
approval.
we have no input.
Correct, and
That's
then the
garbage.
planning commission, and it's state mandated, and so, I mean, and the project that they're proposing, I did put it on the flash drive if you wanted to show like a simple site plan. So the approval at this point would be, site plan and design, not necessarily permits and
Oh, that's
buildings,
not
just
it.
getting the actual project through. it's a nice project, but it's not, it's all affordable. 10% of it will be very low income. Go into miscellaneous.
And we have no financial commitment to it?
And, that one.
This one?
Yes.
Dominique?
At this point in time, we do not, they did indicate that San Joaquin County has allocated them $800,000 of their home funds to see this project move forward.
What is the total cost of the project?
That doesn't mean, we haven't received any of that information yet. That doesn't mean that in the future, they won't come and inquire about any monies.
Well,
They
before,
haven't asked as of yet, but previously, they were asking.
well, in Manteca, had quite an overrun on their project over there. And before I sign off personally, I can't speak for the council, I wanna see what this project's all about before I agree to let them go. Cause we need to see what's going on. I mean, I don't think we should ever just turn our back on somebody and say, go ahead and do it. I think we need to know what's going on.
Well, yes, and that's why I'm providing you this update. But it's just, it's through the state mandate that we can't bring it to council as a discretionary approval. It has to be
So
streamlined.
your update shows us a layout.
This is all that's been submitted right now. They haven't actually submitted yet. This is the meeting we had last week where they shared their intentions, and we're hoping to get it in at the July 1st deadline for tax credits. If they don't make that deadline, they won't be able to apply for it until next March, and so they're really hoping to get it moving now. And so it would be, conceptual drawing of the plan, the concept, and then the planning commission does have some discretion regarding design and site and architecture in accordance with the municipal code.
So if we don't, if the council has no say in this one way or the other, then
We have to approve the idea, I think. Don't we have?
No.
No, I'm giving you an update that this is what's come forward.
So they can just
so
come
they're
here and
very-
build something and we have nothing to do with it?
It doesn't, because it's the affordable housing, it goes through a streamlined process where staff will review it.
And we
But
review it
unless,
to state standards.
to state standards, so if they're meeting those standards, then we can't really make any changes
it
to
doesn't
it.
cost the city anything?
Well, they would pay us for review. For
I mean,
I
we
mean,
don't-
for the
we don't have to
project, at
use-
this time, they're not asking
haven't asked for
any
anything.
contributions from the city for this project.
But
We
if
ob-
they do, then
That's
then
where
we
you
would
would
have to
probably have
approve
some,
that.
yeah.
Are we
When they
obligated to
come-
provide assistance?
No,
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
no, and then I think that would be, our caveat to them is that if there's gonna be any kind of consideration from the city towards this project, then that could hold up your process.
Do they have a time frame when they think it'll be completed?
We haven't received any of that information. They're just trying to get their application completed for the state, and the application to apply to the state for tax credits is about $100,000. And so they are investing in this to move forward.
And the planning commission has to sign off on it?
Um,
Sort of?
It's like a design review, and so their next meeting is June 15th, and so we were
So
going to.
aesthetics of it.
Aesthetics only.
Yeah.
Correct, and in accordance with.
Not whether or not it moves forward.
No, it moves forward. And so, yes, that's, and they've been very friendly, very accommodating.
Yes, why?
A lot of the stuff that they have in there is stuff that we've talked about in the past. But they did let us know, it is, affordable housing. Section 8 housing voucher program, and so it doesn't have a lot of the amenities because it's subsidized. And so they have the laundry facilities instead of individual items. They don't have any studios, because they're also ones that have told us that the studios don't really do well.
So it is gated also, correct?
He actually confirmed and said they wouldn't be able to gate it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so it would not be
Who-
gated.
who,
But it would
who-
be under property management, so they would, the upside of these types of projects is that they do hire property management and have a property manager on site that maintains and takes care of the
California law,
property.
Who would own this, or who would run it? It would be the county?
No,
Or,
So,
it's a private company.
it's my understanding that the property owner would be the county of San Joaquin. And then they would hire or subcontract out to a property manager to be able to operate it.
And this is senior housing,
But we
correct?
haven't received a lot of that information yet.
And the one in
so-
Manteca, I don't think it's private, the county owns it. I think they own it. This group out of Stockton owns it. We should check into that, because I don't think it's the county that owns
And that
this.
will all be confirmed when they submit the application. Once they submit the application, it's gonna have that information, and we'll know exactly who's owning it, who's operating
'Cause I
it.
talked to those guys earlier in the year,
So when when a private citizen wants to come and build something like this, they gotta jump through
a
about
bunch of hoops.
10 million miles of red tape. But if the county wants to do it, they
There
just
you
come in
go.
and
Well,
go,
if
we'll
they
just
wanna-
build
Because
it.
it's deed
Bingo.
restricted.
If it's,
Talk to you.
now,
We need
if
to talk to you
it's
about it.
deed restricted
Because
and
it's
it's
deed
affordable housing, then it goes to the state standards,
Yeah.
so.
What's their definition of affordable housing?
It goes back to those,
The median income households. and-
median income household, the AMI, and those charts that we reviewed at our first housing meeting where it shows the income limits that you're allowed to have.
And they have other
So roughly
projects-
42,000 is the highest.
Do
you
the
can have.
state standards that they have to build this to comply with our city standards?
They're less than our standards.
So this is gonna be a less than our standard city project government thing.
In certain areas. I wouldn't say less in all areas. The state mandate has less parking requirements, less landscaping requirements. But that's not to say that they haven't proposed what's reasonable for their project. And so in reviewing the SB 35 standards, they have 48 units. They were only needed to supply 48 parking spaces, but I think that they originally had 52 or something like that. And so they're doing what they think fits the project. That's the minimum that's required. The state law for this, or the streamlining, is the minimum that the state wants to see. They're allowed to offer more. I mean, and we try to let them know. When they came in, I gave them all the information we had from our meetings. I showed them what everybody's looking for. But obviously, because of the type of project it is and it's being funded through the state, there are certain things that they're not allowed to do to keep it affordable, so.
Well, now, are they paying full freight on the developer impact fees?
At this time, yes, unless something
We haven't been
happens.
told different at
We
this
haven't been
point.
And the other
differently.
thing, I mean, I don't think this precludes anything that we've been all planning on. I mean, I think that concept is full speed ahead.
So, I mean, honestly, I see this project maybe needing the needs of those that are on the wait list at Heritage House.
Bingo.
Is that the same income level as Heritage House? That's the one
Correct.
question I was
Yes.
Yeah, so
asking.
this
Use
would
another
meet
set of
that
those for
need.
this town.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
So, who is eligible to move in here? And is it a purchase, so that they're actually purchasing
They're
the unit?
rentals.
It's
These are all rentals.
They're all
Property
rentals.
All
managed.
rentals.
Yeah.
So who's eligible for it?
Anybody in San Joaquin County that's registered through the Housing Authority for Housing.
That has a certain income
That,
level.
yeah, that's looking for, that meets the income threshold, and is
It's not just
applied to
local,
look for
that's the
housing in
whole county.
Escalon.
So age restricted at all?
Yes.
Age
So
restricted,
55, 60?
I believe they said 62.
Okay.
I can double check. The minimum for the state is 55,
Okay,
but I believe it was 62.
okay, and this is SB 35?
SB
mandated?
35 streamline,
And,
affordable housing.
and how did they identify this property? Did we go to the county, or did the county
Yeah, good question.
end of us wanting this type of-
Originally, with this one specifically, we had reached out to them,
To-
not the county.
not to the
We had reached
county,
out to the
yeah.
developer that was doing a project in
DFA.
Manteca, and he had advised that this was how they get their projects through and funded. They use the Housing Authority as their 501c3 so that they're able to apply for tax credits and fund the project.
We met with them.
Yeah.
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 So this
We
isn't.
did meet with them, it's almost been 2 years since
Right.
we
That
met
was
with
2
them.
years ago?
Almost, yeah.
Wow.
So it's not one of those circumstances where the state is looking around, identifying
No.
property in our city and saying
No.
there's a good
Just
place for a
No,
project.
no,
This
it
is
is
a
not.
project that we reached out for
We're
that
out of
meets
Stockton.
some of the requirements that we're looking to fulfill.
Correct.
Right.
Thanks.
Well, they have one there on Manteca. It's right by the car wash. You go in on Yosemite and you turn right at the car wash. Before you hit the overpass on the right-hand side, they built that one.
They're
And
also,
they had a lot of overruns on it.
Yeah. It doesn't look bad, though. I know which one, now I know which one you're talking about.
No, it doesn't look bad at all.
Yeah,
But they have
right.
2 stories there too, by the
Yeah,
way.
there's
They do.
2 stories
yeah,
there.
these are single story, 48 units. The most recent project that they're moving forward on right now is next to the county hospital in French Camp. I believe it's the veterans housing for homeless veterans. That's another project that they're currently doing right now.
But I believe it's a privately held company. I don't think it's a county.
And it might be DFA
The
that
gentleman we met
holds
with-
it, and the 501c3 that keeps it
You were in that meeting,
affordable.
weren't you?
they run the voucher program.
You were in that meeting.
I was in that meeting.
Yeah, they gave us his card. I'll have to find his card. It's a private held company.
He is, yeah, they are a private company who utilizes the 501c3 for the tax credit benefit.
So they partner with the
They
county
partner. It's a
housing
partnership.
authority.
Yeah.
What the hell's that guy's name? I remember.
Danny Fred.
What was it?
Danny Fred.
Danny Fred, that's right. Mr. Fred's an older gentleman, I remember speaking to him.
In stereo twice today.
Yeah.
So do you have any other questions on that project? And so, staff's been busy. We've been getting a lot of people coming in regarding projects. And so you may recall that we had also reached out to the Retirement Housing Foundation, who are the property owners of Heritage House.
Right.
And we're talking to them about projects. They have indicated last week that they have secured pre-development funds from their board to apply towards engineering and possible architecture and to start the feasibility process on developing a portion of the city's parkland. Because that did come up at one point that it was an open suggestion that maybe we take a portion of the parkland that we have and put it towards senior housing. So that obviously was an incentive to them to want to move forward. They were looking at probably 2 to 5 acres for a project, and wanted to meet sometime this week with staff to discuss everything, to make sure we're all on the same page and see what was moving forward. Talk about the next steps. In the past, they have inquired about the city's in lieu fees that we have collected for affordable housing, and they've also inquired about our annual amount of CDBG funds, which we currently aren't able to use, that we end up giving up every year because we don't have any projects that meet the requirements to be able to move forward. They also talked about trying to find somebody in the town or whether it be a business or a person or whatever that would be interested in making some type of charitable donation towards the project to move it forward. So there's a lot of things that have moved forward. And they have explained to us that they would try to produce as close to the project as we're looking for when it comes to mixed,
How many
attainable, affordable, and market rate.
How many units are they proposing?
They haven't gotten that far yet. They just secured funding to move forward with putting stuff together for us. So we will meet that week. If anybody's interested in wanting to meet from the council to talk to them, let me know, and we can schedule around that schedule.
These projects are equivalent, right, on what they're gonna provide, the type of
This
product
one
they're
to
gonna
the
provide.
county project?
County project.
So when we talked with RHF, they were gonna do a combination.
We had told them what we were looking for in terms of a combination of market rate and affordable, so that they can apply for tax credits, but allow a certain amount of market rate in, so that we can have some provided at attainable. And so that was the mix that they had said. So it would be less affordable, enough to obtain tax credits and move forward,
That's
but
where they
have
make their
that
money.
market rate available too.
That's on the tax credits.
Affordable for 'em.
So they have reached out as well and wanting to move forward. We also had another developer come in a few weeks ago that was also interested in senior housing. He's currently building a senior housing project of approximately 35 units in Modesto, and they are single-bedroom apartments for seniors. He's done past projects in Riverbank and Oakdale. He says he's ready to start construction in 6 months, and he did submit a copy of what he's doing in Modesto as an example of the type of housing he's providing. But he is looking at the council's parkland to be able to do that project. He's open to discussing anything that the council is interested in doing, whether it be drafting up tenant guidelines for the project. He had thrown out there that the city at some point, and we haven't looked into it to know if this is even feasible, where the city would continue to own the property and he would lease it with option to buy and run it, have property management, keep the project going. The only items that he wasn't too much concerned with, but just said would not be able to be addressed at this point in time, would be the items that some of the seniors had put on their list that they were interested in, which was the daily meals, the weekly housekeeping, those type of items. He had indicated, but those are easy items that he could have property management take care of. So once they get property management in, they can work something out with local restaurants and take care of local, whoever's doing housekeeping in town, and work out contracts to have
Who is the
that
organization?
provided. It's called Cornerstone Construction.
Stone. That sounds familiar.
And so he does, a lot of the projects he's doing are more on the smaller end, but his proposal was 100 units at this point in time. Trying to follow that line of what we were telling him about having so many attainable, so it would be 35 one-bedroom attainables, 55 one-bedroom market rates, and then 10 two-bedroom rates. And this is subject to flexibility on however can make the project feasible financially as well as what the council's interested in. And he would be ready to construct in the next 6 months if we wanted to move, forward. And he would honor preference to local residents, preference to 65 and up, whatever preferences the council was interested in those guidelines. We also had another developer come in and meet with staff, who was also interested in building whatever the city wanted. They are looking at the parkland as being the area that they would build it on, but they have also been active in looking at other properties in town and calling in and asking about other properties. So they are looking around. They are scheduled to come in 2 weeks to go over additional information on moving forward with something if they were interested. And then from our last meeting, I've talked to Alex Levy, who was present at our last affordable housing meeting, and he's also doing the same thing, working with people he knows on trying to get something together for a project. And so that being said, we've got a lot of activity going on right now, and if all of these went through, we'd have a lot of senior housing.
We did want senior housing.
Yeah, and so, I just wanted to give you an update on that, because we've had a lot of activity when it comes to that, so.
Did they contact you, or did you contact these developers regarding all the ones that
It's a
are
mix.
interested
It's
in
a mix,
possibly the
yeah.
park property?
So 3 of them were contacted by staff, probably about 2 years ago, 1 to 2 years ago. And then 2 of them have recently contacted, we have a lot of properties on the market right now. And housing is something that everybody's looking at doing, and so we have been getting a lot of calls on that. And so we always tell them that right now the council's priority is senior housing.
Sure.
So then they ask more about it.
Now, just one quick question, Mark. I mean, you might be the one with the best answer to this question. Under no, and I'm thinking more so along what the state and the SB 135, yeah. Is there any circumstance that the state can do, let's say they need to build an affordable housing project? Is there any circumstance where they can claim eminent domain from a municipality and take the property?
I believe so. I can't cite to the code section for it, but most of it's all through their incentive program and their streamlining program versus taking it for themselves and doing it. But that is a possibility.
Okay. Okay.
And are there limitations to how many units they could require?
I'm
from
sure,
us?
I don't know that law on the top of my head, but.
The state is really, they like the higher density building up as opposed to building out. And so the project that they're proposing is pretty reasonable, I would say, on what we're anticipating would come to town. They've definitely taken how the town is and how we operate into consideration in moving forward on this. It doesn't appear like they're, coming in and trying to take the reins or anything like that. They're being very,
Accommodating?
yeah, they want it to
Considerate.
work out. They're considerate, they want it to work out, they want whatever they put into town, they want everybody to like it and appreciate that it's here, so.
So it sounds like I think this is fantastic news. I think this is fantastic. And, it's interesting when we put our minds to something and we put it out there and we start thinking of ways to incentivize, developers that they start coming to us for projects that meet our needs. At this point, we are just waiting for more stuff to come to us to talk
Correct.
about, right?
Yeah, so at this point in time, they're ready to move forward regarding the Irwin Village project. RHF wants to talk this week about trying to move forward on a project that they'd like to do. The Cornerstone Construction, he's interested in moving forward with the project as well, but both RHF and Cornerstone, at this point in time, are looking at that parkland as an area for them to do their project. And then we have these other developers that really haven't specified a piece of land. Of course, they'd be interested in the parkland if we ended up moving forward with that, but I know that they've been looking at other properties in town as well, so.
Oh, we've gone fishing, it seems like we got a couple on
We've
the
gone
line here.
fishing, and we've
And
got,
I
we've
think we got a
people
real,
on the
we got a
line.
real one in here. We got a real
Yeah.
one in.
Use it
So,
as bait.
so,
Councilmember Swift, just to your point, the state legislature is not done with, sorry, the state legislature is not done with affordable housing yet. There are multiple bills going through.
Yeah, I know, that's the part that scares me, yes.
State mandated actions on affordable housing. That
Okay.
has not slowed down yet.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's
That's where some of these projects are,
Iffy.
better to get them in now and
Yep.
get them under the current circumstances before it gets
Amen.
worse.
Yep.
Are we zoned okay on that property? We don't have to do any work on that? We're good to go pretty much?
For
at that
Irwin?
property?
medium density.
Irwin's good, right?
Yeah, they meet.
We don't have to do
they
anything?
meet
Okay.
the- yeah.
Just wanna make sure we're prepped and ready to go if that
Yeah.
does go.
Well, and that's one of the things in the state legislature that they were, zoning has typically been local control, but that
Yeah,
is
they're
what
trying to take that
going
away,
toward.
I know.
They
Yeah,
wanna,
exactly.
yeah.
So wrong.
Yeah, which would, have you maybe aware of in our housing element, I wanna say not the last one, maybe the one, God, we've done 2 cycles since I've been here, so the one before then, that was when we incorporated multifamily housing development into our C2. So any areas in town that are zone C2 also have the ability to be built as high-density residential, and that was something that was required by the state and implemented into our housing element at that time. So that's provide that option. If they don't wanna go commercial, they could go multifamily.
So just to clarify about the parkland, we've had not only one, but 2 or 3 developers approach the city, and one of them has said, we'll build whatever you want.
Two
Two of them have said that.
basically, yeah.
One of them has said they'll do 100 units, they'll do 10, attainable, 55 market rate, and some higher end stuff, all the stuff we've talked about, so.
Correct.
I would just encourage staff to roll on that.
Okay.
It's using the right bait, right?
Okay.
We done?
On those items, yes. Just make sure.
All righty. Well, that moves us down to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city on any of the items that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item that's not on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. The determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. All right, is there anyone out there who would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda or on the agenda, either way? Come please to the podium.
I just wanted to take a couple minutes to update you on the Senior Fun Bunch, which is continuing, and we are having our gathering on Wednesday from 2 to 4. The chief of police is coming to talk to the seniors about safety for seniors, and in June, we're moving it to 11 o'clock because we're worried about the heat, and Councilman Peter is coming to talk about service. So we have a full program. We're moving ahead. Instead of one walking group, we now have 2 walking groups. So we have people walking Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So they're very, very active. That's the good part. But there is a big concern for me, and I think it should be a concern for you as well. I visited the Heritage House and talked to the staff there. And I was appalled when I left, and I left with a full plate, believe me. But I'm going to give you a couple examples of what they said. One person said, look, I'm visually impaired. I need help. I called Stanislaus County, and they have a wonderful program, but they won't help me because I'm in San Joaquin. San Joaquin did not answer phone calls. For a week and a half, multiple times a day, they were called until I was able to finally escalate it to someone to make them call me. This is not acceptable for a service organization out there who's answering their phone saying, office hours are from 9 to 5, leave a message, and not returning a call. I went through that with Meals on Wheels as well. The people told me the same thing. No return phone calls. They said that it's no different than before the pandemic. They were just as bad before. So we've taken that on now as a project to find out all the service needs that people have, try to figure out how the easiest way for them to make contact, and then be backup people in case somebody decides not to answer the phone. If you wanted, if you called San Joaquin County, they have a lovely book. Doesn't give much information on Escalon, but you have to go to Stockton to pick it up, to give you some phone numbers. We are going to develop something for our seniors here in Escalon. We are going to try to bird dog some of these programs to make sure they're getting the help that they need. And it is a big project because we have to talk to a lot of people. But I think it's worth it, and I think it serves our people well. So please, if you hear of someone that's telling you that they can't get through to someone, please call me or have them call me. You are free to give my phone number so that we can help them as much as we can. The final thing is, I just want to remind you that the Escalon Senior Fund Bunch is sponsored by Sarah Lutheran Church, and that means they're a silent partner. They're just kind of helping, and they've got a lot of volunteers helping as well. But the big thing they do for us is they donate the paper and the ink so that the 125 newsletters can go out every month. And so I thought this was an appropriate time to introduce you to the new pastor at Sarah Lutheran Church. This is Pastor Callie Torres. And I'd like you to welcome her to Escalon. And she has committed to continue to support the senior program.
And you could also call your county supervisor, who is
Chuck Wynn.
Chuck Wynn, and pass on the information to him that you've passed on to us, and maybe he could start doing his job.
Actually, that's what I finally had to do.
Did you get a result?
Yes, I did. Thank
Good.
you.
There you go.
And if you can tell me what is the book on Escalon, that the county has?
Got one. Mhm.
You have one?
Mhm.
Because maybe we can get them to allow us to hold copies here in our, in City Hall.
I don't think it's worth it.
Okay.
I think we need to develop our own so that.
So we do have out there, also, we have a pamphlet that we've put together that it services across all ages.
Okay.
But there is a pamphlet out there that you can look at, make sure, if you don't find it, ask me before
Okay.
tonight, okay?
Okay.
Before you leave tonight.
Yeah, I will get that because we want to try to make it as easy for these people as possible.
Yeah, and we may already have a lot of the information in the pamphlet, so no need to do double work.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, Ann, thank you. Is there anyone else out there who'd like to come up and speak? Please do.
Good evening. I just have a response, actually I have a couple questions, but a response to hers. If we're allowing senior housing to come in, are we going to allow more housing for elderly people who are going to have more issues that people aren't taking care of? In response to hers, one person, what if we bring 100 more people? And that company is not taking care of the elderly like they're supposed to. So,
Well, if the
sorry
county-
for that issue there.
If the county responds in a positive way, maybe they'll improve their services to the point we're better off. I don't know what Mr. Wynn will do or can do with regards to his agencies being more professional and more attentive. And when you spoke with him, did he give you any indication of what he was gonna do to make things better?
No, actually, I got to one of his cohorts, one of his aides.
Okay, do you have a line of communication with them that you'll be dealing with it? Maybe you can keep us updated.
What is the level of service that Heritage is obligated to provide? They're renting facilities, but it's not considered assisted living in any form, is it?
No.
No,
So it's
no.
on each individual's residence to take care of their own business.
That's
As
correct.
if they were in an apartment complex, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to remind the council that we're in public comment at this time, not any discussion.
Okay.
So, my question is, you talked earlier about housing on Irwin,
Irwin in, California,
okay.
the old auction yard as we
Okay,
most
that's a
refer
great
to
spot.
it.
That's a great spot. And the other one, you talked about parklands. I don't understand what that is.
We have an area headed out of town past the community center, past Hogan Park, and it's approximately 18 or 19 acres.
Orchard.
And it's
Oh, okay.
currently an almond
Next to
orchard.
the feed,
The feed
just
store
beyond the
behind
feed
the feed
store,
store?
the house and that
Okay.
orchard, the city actually owns that.
And then,
That's
so,
designated for future parkland.
and so plumbing and sewer would have to expand out to
Correct.
that, and does the builder?
Builder usually takes care of that.
Okay,
Most
thank
new
you.
development will pay its own way.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the gentleman's gonna speak now, Ann. Ann,
Hold on.
just a moment, Ann. The gentleman behind, okay.
I have a question
Of course,
about the
go ahead.
senior housing. I don't get it. The first presentation you made about the first group from the county, all they want to do is help with their senior housing shortage. That's not going to help Escalon
I don't
in any
disagree.
way.
I don't disagree.
None whatsoever. And it's probably the very, very presentation that we made was a concern about that middle group. It's not going to help the middle group.
Well, we're gonna have to take a hard look at what we're gonna do here. Just because we have all the stuff on the table, doesn't mean any of it's gonna go anywhere until we look at it a little closer.
But I thought that you were going to put an RFP out, which told them
It wasn't an RFP, excuse me. What it was,
an
An RFQ, request for
RFQ.
qualifications.
and I think, has that been done?
We're still working on it. But
Okay,
we have
so-
5 right now, and so
You
So
have 5 people, but have you got any information regarding their qualifications?
2 of them have submitted
RFQs?
background informally. It's just things that they've put together to kind of show us a path.
All
But we
right, are
haven't
we-
officially put
Are we
an
gonna
RFQ
continue
out
with the
yet.
RFPs?
RFQ.
RFQ.
I mean, that
RFQ, excuse
depends
me.
on council. I was planning to get it on, I was shooting for the first June meeting, but it's probably gonna be the second meeting in June for a draft. But we have 5 developers right now that are all locally based.
Yeah, but one thing I don't wanna go through again is what we've gone through already in town here. I do never wanna see that ever happen again in this town. And if
Yes.
it does, there's gonna be some heads falling, because that is out of control.
May I suggest that this be either placed on a future agenda, since there seems to be a lot of discussion over it,
That's fine, we can do that.
or
Maybe we
just
could bring it back to the next meeting. Do we need to make it a proposal at this point for, to be on the agenda for the next meeting?
If you'd like me to just continue moving forward with the RFQ, that's fine. But we do have 5 developers that have approached us. 4 if you don't count the one that's from the county.
Maybe just continue with the updates each
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
so we can kind of keep tabs on how things are
Sure.
developing. We dangled a carrot out there,
But-
we got a lot of people
I still-
interested, so,
I still think it's important to qualify them.
absolutely. Well,
Because,
and the project itself.
and the
So-
project itself.
Definitely. I mean, we wouldn't, I'm not gonna pick anybody without running it.
So
through
depending, how about we approach it this way, depending upon if there's any kind of movement, whether it be in the RFQ or negotiations or talks with the developers, staff could put it on the next council agenda for discussion if need be.
And Mark, I'm not doing any discussion, but to answer what Ann's saying, the Irwin council is separate from the other items, which is what would hit that middle ground. So we're still on that, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, so Ann, we're pretty much at the end of what we can talk about on this deal.
Okay, that
All right?
sounds good.
Thank you, Ann.
All right.
Nice to see you guys again.
Good seeing you. Can we have your name, please?
Terry Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I live at 1633 Yosemite Avenue. I was here about the sidewalk and rail for my, or excuse me, the parking and the rail for my mother-in-law.
Yes,
Here,
sir.
I'm gonna pass a picture of the property around. Everyone keeps talking about people walking down that area, but it's on a slope. People don't walk there. They walk right through my yard. I mean, I've spent tons of money on fertilizer and grass seed just to try and keep the paths out of there. Kids don't walk there and adults don't walk through there. And the biggest problem is because you got a stop sign that's 21 inches away from the curb, and then you've got a bike route sign that's 2 feet away from the curb. An ADA requirement requires for it to be a pathway to be 36 inches. So it's not a walkway right now at all. So to add a handrail to that, I mean, it's not obstructing anything. The path is already obstructed from the stop sign and from the bike path. This is what we're proposing to do, and we're hoping for a handicap spot, but it sounds like that's out the window. I've seen them over in Oakdale, Modesto, Manteca, where the city has accommodated. I don't know why we just can't get a small blue stripe. And then we're talking about obstructions and people not being able to get down the walkway. I took a little bike ride about 2 blocks away from my house. There's a house about, I don't know, 3 houses down the road that has rocks, big rocks sitting inside the easement for you guys. I'm not trying to decorate. I'm just trying to have some safety for my mother-in-law, who's about 80 years old. And then the one that blows me away is the one at 1212 Stanislaus. They've got their hedge all the way up to the curb. They've got river rock running all the way through the city's easement. And the thing about that picture that blows me the most away is the stop sign there. That stop sign was just put there 2 years ago by you guys, and yet you guys put it inside the easement. This walkway that people are supposed to have through the property. I'm not trying to do anything different. I'm just trying to provide some safety for my mother-in-law. I'm asking for a handrail. I mean, I can go through the city and I can bring you properties every week it's just not been there for a couple days. It's been there for a long time.
Where are we talking about? Which street, sir?
It's right across the street it's on Yosemite, right across the street from the high school, corner of Yosemite and Stanislaus.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's North Avenue and Stanislaus, this picture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's the one with the stop sign in it.
Yes, sir. And you're talking about the rocks in the easement.
No,
In case you wanted to hand it out.
no, I'm good.
So the rocks in the easement is what you're referring to there as well? So there's no
obstructed, really.
chance for a sidewalk, is what you're saying in essence?
Well, it's got to be a walk-through, is what she's telling me on
I
the phone.
understand, I understand.
I mean, people can't walk through that.
Well,
True.
Mark, at this point, we don't get into this either because it's not on the agenda, so we gotta, well, all we can tell you is we can recommend that we come back to the next meeting with this on the agenda. Is that the idea?
Or you could inform the gentleman, staff will continue to communicate with him, and I can
Okay.
communicate with him if need be.
There you,
The communication is to have my mother-in-law go through the garage, and there is no access to the property through the garage.
so.
All I'm asking for is a simple handrail, or
I understand.
better yet, make it a walkway through there, get rid of the stop sign, bring it closer to the curb, and get rid of the bike
Mr.
path.
Anderson, I don't disagree with anything you said. The problem is formalities here. We cannot get into this with you now.
I know.
But I don't disagree with you.
Okay?
I don't know the solution's the problem.
I don't
does
either.
anyone on
Can
the
it,
council
can
have
it
a solution?
get, can one of us request that this guy's making a really good argument for.
I agree.
And so, I know we're not supposed to discuss it, but how do we help this gentleman out as far as being able to discuss it and maybe make a course of action, whether it's, you know what I'm saying? How do we get this on the agenda?
Well, we could probably,
Council members can either put it on the agenda, or actually, council members can just communicate with staff after the meeting during working hours, and you're allowed to communicate this with
So you're
staff,
getting
and
done.
staff can.
But they can't they request it tonight? I mean, technically,
Under council communications, yeah.
we can request it to be put on the agenda for next meeting.
I'll bring more pictures.
You don't need more pictures.
I'll bring them.
Your case is made.
If you want to provide more pictures, it would be more useful if you provided them to us ahead of time so we can include it in the agenda packet.
I can do
It's pretty
that.
much my belief.
I
So
can
by
email-
the Thursday before the.
Do you have an email
7th.
address? Or
I
card?
can give you my email address, yes.
I'll
So
send it to
should
you.
one of us bring that up later?
Get them up on the TV.
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be the time.
I don't know much about that. All right. Is there such a thing as a blue curb policy?
There is, that was what I had brought a few years
So
ago.
we could modify that if we
We
had
could
to.
revisit
We
it.
don't have a blue curb
That's
policy.
what I'm
When we
saying.
brought it to the council 2 years ago, we didn't proceed with it. The council
Okay.
chose not to.
This will be some of the things that can be discussed
Okay.
with the staff report or with a.
Okay, so at this point, can we
agenda
make a recommendation to bring this to the next meeting? Mark? Is it proper for us to ask to have this put on the agenda for the next meeting?
Well, you can inform him that, once the council decides to put it on the agenda, certainly the council can inform him or ask staff to inform them that it's gonna be on the agenda on X date and he.
Okay, so it's my understanding it needs two votes, is that right? So does someone want to make a motion to put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
It's a consensus.
But the best time to do that would be during council communications.
Okay, all right, we'll do it at council communications. We'll take care of it.
All right, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right,
Thanks.
all right.
Well, don't take off just yet.
Now hang in here. Let's make sure it gets done.
Yeah, there might be a little more conversation.
Yeah, don't walk away yet.
I'm not supposed to trust.
Hey,
Trust but
confirm-
verify.
Confirm and verify. There we go. Okay, so now where are we? We're at
Still in,
Public,
public hearing. Any more? Are there
There's-
any other individuals out in the audience that would like to comment? If not, how about online? Do we have anyone online that would like to
no,
comment?
we don't.
We do not. So at that point, we're gonna close that down and we're gonna move on to administrative matters.
So item number 10 is for the city council to consider project options for our Prop 68 grant monies for Parks and Recreation. In November of 2020, we were notified of our per capita program funding through the Park and Water Bond Act of 2018, or Prop 68. City of Escalon is estimated to, or is eligible to receive $182,571 for a qualified project, and the city's required to match 20% of the project cost. The first step in the process was the passage of a resolution presented and adopted at the November 16th, 2020 meeting. The next step is submitting an application packet with a proposed qualified project no later than June 30th of 2021. The funds are available for local park rehabilitation, creation, and improvement. Grant recipients are encouraged to utilize awards to rehabilitate existing infrastructure and address deficiencies in neighborhoods lacking access to the outdoors. Any property that the grant funds are used on will be required to have a deed restriction for a 20 to 30-year period for recreational purposes only. This restriction does limit the use of the parcel to only recreation or open space. As discussed in past meetings, staff has proposed that the project be the replacement of the bathroom at Hogan Innes Park with a new prefabricated bathroom from Public Restroom Company. The project is recommended based on the results from the community survey conducted in 2019, where the most desired project was a new public bathroom. The current bathroom is 25 feet by 14 and 8.5 to 10 feet high, has 2 urinals, 1 stall in the men's room, and 3 stalls in the women's restrooms. Staff organized and visited the bathrooms from Public Restroom Company and Tracy and found the buildings to be well constructed. Staff also spoke with staff from both Manteca and Tracy, who have used the company several times and highly recommended the company based on the product and customer service. The company does offer a 5-year warranty for fixtures and equipment and a 20-year structural warranty. Staff has received updated pricing on 3 different models. So we do estimate that demolishing of the current bathroom and site preparation costs would range from $8,000 to $12,000 depending upon the building size. The first option is for $235,000 for the building cost. Total estimated cost with a 15% contingency would be $281,750. The city's contribution to the project would be almost $100,000. This bathroom is slightly larger than the current bathroom. It's a 19 by 24 and has equivalent stalls, urinals as the current bathroom. Option B is a $255,000 building cost, estimated cost with the 15% contingency, and the site prep is $304,750. Our contribution for this one would be $122,000. This bathroom is slightly larger than the current bathroom. It's a 21.5 by 24. Provides the same number of stalls in the women's restroom, one less urinal in the men's, but does add a family or all gender restroom. And option C, with a $340,000 building cost, would have an estimated cost of $404,800. And the city's contribution for this project would be $222,000. This bathroom is a 24 by 32, provides an additional stall and sink in both the men's and the women's bathroom. It also provides the additional family all-gender restroom and a storage room. Storage room would be utilized for recreation equipment. So staff projects that there will be approximately $455,000 in the Parks and Recreation funds at the end of the current fiscal year, and staff is looking for a recommendation from the City Council on which option to move forward with in submitting for these funds. Environmental, this project qualifies for a CEQA Class 2 categorical exemption under Section 15302. B, replacement or reconstruction. A notice of exemption will be filed by the county recorder's office. So staff is looking for which option the council would prefer to go with, and then also finding the project CEQA exempt. So this is option A here.
How many do we currently have? I forget.
So it's basically identical to what this picture is. It has the 2 urinals in the men's, 1 stall, and 3 stalls in the women's bathroom.
Do they all come with drinking fountains?
Yes, they do. So then if you,
I visited in Tracy. It's a nice looking unit.
Which one would that have been? Option
and
A?
that would be the option C. So this is option B. It adds the family bathroom, but takes away a urinal in the men's restroom. And then option C would be similar to, or I think is identical to what is in Tracy. So it gives you 4 stalls in the women's, where we only have 3 now, gives you 2 sinks, and we only have 1. And then the men's adds another sink, and adds 1 more stall, and then you have the family restroom and then a storage room.
So what's the family restroom, for the babies and stuff?
Yeah.
Diaper changing table?
Yes.
So I want to wait for the mayor to, whatever he wants.
Well, I was just asking that question. So from after this now, you're gonna ask for which one to pick, is that the idea?
Correct, yes. Which option it is, would be the preference for the council for us to submit to the state
Go ahead,
for
Peter, you had a
consideration.
question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Alves. So it looked like between option A, which maybe is the base model, up to C, which is the deluxe model, we're talking another $100,000 roughly from the city?
Correct, mm-hmm.
And right now we got 450,000, or we will, for
Right.
parks. Is any of that money allocated for anything else, or is all that funds essentially gonna sit there at this point?
The only thing that is in the upcoming budget is repainting the community center, which is a small,
Okay.
price tag, 15,000, I believe.
I mean, the price tag on the option C to me is, it jumps a lot from option A.
I mean, it definitely gives you room for growth.
Yeah, I
there.
think that if you look at the Hogan Park and what takes place there, and all our events, and the probably hundreds, I don't know, tens of thousands of people that go through there every year and use these bathrooms, and I think having a family bathroom where you can, handle that stuff is great. Another storage unit for parks and, or for the rec department. I mean, I hate to go, full force on this, but I kinda like option C.
Anyone else? David?
I'm just trying to analyze what else, I know we've got, 455 anticipated to be in that fund. It's a big jump when you go from 100 to 222 for a bathroom. I do like the idea, as Peter said, with the growth and everything. I do like that idea, but it's an extra 120 grand that we could use if we do decide to add monies to what we're doing with that property. If we get a senior facility going, get a developer to kick some money in to sprinkler and turf some areas. We have, 12 more soccer fields or something. But if we deplete this too much, what do we have really to offer for that? That's a small concern for me. I don't know how everybody else feels, so I'm kind of torn. I like the idea of the bigger one for growth, anticipating that, but also takes a long time to get that extra 120 grand that we're spending built back up.
Councilman Swift.
Well, actually, yeah, and to that point, I mean, that's kind of where I jumped onto the question earlier this evening about the developer impact fees on that possible Irwin project. It sounds like probable Irwin project. So knowing that anticipation is well down the road, yeah, I can't agree more with, I can't agree. I totally agree with Councilmember Crummer. I think that if you're gonna look at this, look at it long term. Boy, you just have that feeling. If you just get option B, you're gonna be looking at it a few years down the road. You're gonna wait, we could have just got C. Why didn't we get C? We should have just done it. So I lean towards C as well.
Okay, Pro Tem Legero?
Yeah, it was between B and C for me, because I think we need the family bathroom. I'm okay with C, long-term. What's the lifespan on this?
20 years.
20 years.
20 years, but they say they build them for 50. And talking to the other cities, they all raved on the product and have used them. I want to say one staff member said they've probably purchased 8 or 9 bathrooms from them. So, I mean, the repeat business kind of speaks to me that there obviously is quality there.
I don't know that we get a lot of complaints about not enough stalls or urinals currently, but that could change, and the storage unit would be a nice addition out there, so, I'm fine with B or C. I'd go either way.
Are they block, they're brick?
They are masonry walls.
So prefab is not
Prefab.
necessarily, they are assembled?
They are assembled with the masonry walls and a concrete floor, and they drop
Really?
them in.
You just
Mhm.
crane them in?
Yes, they crane them
Pretty
in.
I want to watch that.
Yes.
I think,
It would
you know
be
what?
2 halves,
I
you
think
know,
we'll
there's.
all be a lot more popular up here if we get a nice bathroom.
You
That
know-
bathroom stinks.
Okay.
And if I may point out, a couple of years ago, we were talking about all these different options, with the park funds, we were talking about the bathrooms and a nicer set of bathrooms. It seems to me the number that we kept bandying around was like 200,000 for that, okay? And that was yet a nicer, more modern set of bathrooms within the same blueprint of what we had. So now we're looking at getting something much nicer for the same money.
Yeah.
So that's another reason I lean towards
So
C.
we will, I will preface with the option C, we're gonna have to look at placement of it out there.
Sure.
Because
The size.
the fencing, the current access into the snack bar area, that fence kind of comes right behind the bathroom. So I don't know if we're gonna switch the doors, we're gonna have to evaluate that out
Can
there.
we see another drawing of B?
What's their turnaround time? Like, how long is the bathroom gonna be down while they're building it or putting it together?
I'm not sure. I mean, they place it in place and you gotta connect
Pick it up.
everything up. It should be a short time
Put the
frame.
plumbing where they want, and they just drop it in the
When-
pipe
Yeah.
that goes through and
When,
hook it up.
It's probably none of the stuff I need to know, but do they come in and do the plumbing and get it?
So we prepare the site to set down the building and stub everything up.
And you're allocating 8 to 12,000 for that? That
No,
seems so-
demolition.
Because we have to take down the old bathroom and then we have to pipe up and we have to prep the ground.
And
So
8 to 12 is all the piping and all that?
yes, yeah, because
Is there any chance that could go way over that?
I really don't think so. Plus, I put 15% contingency in with the building too. So there is cushion in those numbers that I'm giving you guys.
If we approve a design tonight, when are they thinking they could do it?
Well, I have to submit it to the state for authorization for the project. So then I would have to go to the builder and find out what our timeline is.
All right. Okay, so if we're clear on this, if we go option 3, the total price again is how much?
It's, 222,000 from the city.
That includes the 8 to 12, or is that on top of?
That includes it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so for 200, and what was it, 12?
222?
222,000, we'll get a brand-new bathroom with a family room on it, and extra stalls, and pretty much cover ourselves for the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Easy.
So I guess you gotta look at the value and the fact that over that amount of time, the money's not gonna be worth much if we don't do it now, you know? So do we have a nomination for one of these council members that we can vote on?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we choose the bathroom option C for the Prop 68 grant monies.
Proposal?
Find the project CEQA Class 2 category exempt under Section 15302.
Excuse me one second, Robert, I didn't mean to interrupt you, excuse me.
Yeah. What?
My apologies.
No
We
problem.
need public comment before motion.
Okay,
My
okay.
apologies.
Mine
Okay.
too.
That's what I was signaling.
Mine
I
too.
was trying to catch it, I couldn't. Okay, so,
Some paddles.
we're a little backpedaling here because I forgot that we have to have some input from the outside. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this? Please come to the podium and give us your opinion.
Me talking tonight. Okay, so this is my first council meeting, and it's really hard to sit and be quiet. But I'm vice president of the Historical Society, so thank you, everybody who donates their time and stuff there. And I
We
met
didn't
you
get
the
your
other
name,
day.
can you give the name to everyone so they're familiar? who
My
you are?
name is Wendy Fenton. Thanks,
Thank
everybody
you.
online. Anyway, I did not raise a child in town, but I know since we bought our house here approximately 14 years ago, our neighborhood has boomed in children. There's probably 10 kids out playing in front of their house now where there was none when I moved to town. So I go for C. I've never used the bathrooms there. Maybe I should go to the park more often. But foreseeing the future, as you guys say, even in 20 years from now, when those kids start having kids too, I see that population rising quite immensely. So,
Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else like to speak? Your name, please?
Gary Haskin.
Hey,
Thanks, Ed,
no
appreciate that.
problem, buddy.
It slipped by me, how much was the city's contribution on this,
222,000.
percentage-wise?
Oh, we are required to do a maximum of 20% or a minimum of 20%. That is more than that. The project's 408,000, but we only have so much grant funds. So we only have 182,000 in grant funds. So we have to make up the difference of it.
Okay, because at 20%, the numbers for seed, one's
I understand.
400,000, the
So-
other's 222 from the city. That's
So-
50%, not 20%.
That's correct. So to get the grant money, you have to contribute at minimum 20%. But because the project cost is greater than that, our contribution, because the grant monies do not cover 80% of the project, we have to make up the difference.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Because we only have a maximum number of grant monies that we can get, that have been allocated to us.
Probably makes the grant look a little bit nicer, too.
Some money's better than no money. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak before we move on to a motion? And is there anyone online that would like to speak on this matter?
We don't have any
Nobody's
public
online?
online.
Good enough. All right, we're gonna come back to Councilmember Swift, and I think you can proceed now.
I'll still go with option C, and, yeah, I move that we, go for option C, and then please fill in the rest of the
Find it CEQA
dissertation,
exempt.
yes.
I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second for item C. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. There you go.
Okey-dokey. Thank you.
Now we're on 120.
Yes, so we're on item number 11 now. In consideration of authorizing the city manager to amend the no parking limitations along Third Street towards Jackson Avenue, Highway 120.
That's on the east side, correct?
It's a combination. Dominique will give you the staff report.
I won't look at it, okay.
So a little background and discussion. On Third Street between Coley Avenue and Jackson Avenue, also Highway 120, there is 120 feet of curb painted red along the southeast side of the street. Third Street was a designated truck route in the past, but this designation was removed back in 2017 when the city council amended the municipal code and the city's general plan to list only McHenry Avenue, Escalon Avenue, and Highway 120 as the city's designated truck routes. An inquiry was made with Councilmember Swift on whether the city would consider removing the red curb at this location, which would provide more public parking on the street. Councilmember Swift brought it up to the council under council communications at the May 3rd meeting, and the council was open to its consideration. Public Works staff visited the location and recommends that the first 20 feet of curb from Jackson Avenue heading down the east side of 3rd Street remain red and be repainted. This would leave approximately 105 feet of red curb that could potentially be restored as public parking. The no parking anytime sign located in front of the Dairy Veterinary Services Incorporated business could then be removed. However, DVS would like to maintain the green parking and rear sign that's located in front of their property as is, as accessibility into their offices is easier and more effective for both the customers and their staff at the rear of their building. An additional recommendation of staff is to add red curb down the first 20 feet of 3rd Street on the west side at Jackson Avenue. This is recommended for additional turning safety for right turns from Jackson Avenue onto 3rd Street. City council consent is required prior to the city manager authorizing curb painting for both no parking and limited time parking zones in accordance with the Municipal Code Section 10.12, stopping, standing, and parking. A fiscal impact if the council authorizes both the removal of the 105 feet of red curb down the east side of 3rd Street and the addition of 20 feet of red curb down the west side of 3rd Street. The estimated costs of these improvements would be approximately $500. Therefore, staff is recommending that the council authorize the city manager to amend the no parking limitations along 3rd Street towards Jackson Avenue as presented by staff.
Have we notified the parties being affected by this, the people that own property along that?
We have spoken to DVS. The red curb goes across their parking,
Yeah, I spoke with them as well.
and they had no
no
issue
issue.
of that. And then the corner property is in favor of removal of the red curb.
Which corner property?
The corner
Oh, there,
building.
I see, I got
Yeah.
it, okay.
Is in favor of its removal.
Okay, and how many parking places will you pick up?
Well, 100 feet, so maybe 10,
No,
8.
20, you got 5, maybe
Five,
6.
yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
5 or
4 or
6.
5 SUVs or trucks.
Yeah, depending upon the vehicles.
Three big trucks.
I have a question on, so the estimated cost is $500. Aren't we just talking about painting the curb and then repainting a little bit, a section?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a rough estimate. I'm not sure if we'll add any additional signage or anything, and so that's just an estimate. It could be less.
If you overpaint the existing dulled red,
And I'm not sure what we
To
do with
cover that?
removal, if we
Yeah.
actually go out there and
pressure
Sandblast
wash or
it.
something.
yeah, sandblast it and stuff. So that's labor, materials, time, public works staff, that time, approximately
Okay.
$500.
Okay, so, what do we need from us? Anything?
Yeah.
You need a motion?
Just consent, yeah?
I move to
motion.
approve
Better ask the audience.
staff's recommendation.
Oh, we need,
Oh,
yeah, some
before,
audience.
wait.
After
Ask
public
the
comment.
audience. The audience, would you like any input on this? Thank you. Is there any input from the audience on this matter? Okay, seeing none, there's nobody online, so we'll come back to Councilmember Bellinger. You may proceed.
I'm good with it.
Crummick was the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I move to approve staff's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. All righty. So that brings us to, I believe, council communications. Am I
nope,
right?
we have one more item.
Okay.
Item number 12. City council to discuss the city fees for variance and appeal processes.
So at the May 3rd meeting, Councilmember Crummick requested that the council consider reviewing the fees for variances and appeals. The council thereafter directed staff to bring this item back as an agenda item. So in June of 2017, the city council initiated an updated fee study with ClearSource Financial Consulting. The purpose of conducting this study was to review and calculate the costs of providing fee-related services, to remodel the existing fee schedules to correlate to prevailing services and practices, to assist with cost recovery, policy development, and planning for ongoing maintenance of fees, and to estimate revenue impacts of fee modifications where possible with available data. Periodically updating the city's schedule of fees is intended to provide multiple benefits, including increasing the availability of general fund revenues to be used for services and activities available to all residents and businesses, such as public safety and public works services, and helping meet the service level expectations of the community by collecting revenues to fund the services provided by each department. Terry Madsen with ClearSource Consulting presented the user and regulatory fee study with the proposed fees in draft form to the City Council on March 19th of 2018. The council discussed assigning 2 council members to meet with staff and Mr. Madsen to review the fees in detail. Council members Alves and Swift met with Mr. Madsen and city staff to review the study of the user fees in April of 2018. The meeting went well, with Mr. Madsen doing a complete review of how he arrived at the hourly cost and a line-by-line review of the fees. The proposed fee schedule was edited as suggested and then presented to the City Council for approval on April 2nd. The City Council approved the fee schedule as presented in 2018. One of the findings discussed in the user and regulatory fee study was that the Planning Department's estimated cost recovery for fee services at the time was 22%. This meant that general fund revenues were essentially subsidizing the remaining 78%. Specific to this fees established in the Planning Department, planning maintains and implements the city's zoning code and researches and prepares other specialized planning documents and provides services to applicant-driven processes. The department also reviews development requests for conformance with the city's planning policies and standards. Planning staff also oversees the city's advanced planning efforts. The cost of providing fee-related services are proposed to be recovered in part, in full, or in full from fees. Costs associated with the non-fee related services are proposed to be paid from other sources, typically the city's general fund revenues. When the council adopted the updated fee schedule, they selected a phase-in approach to increase cost recovery levels and implement a pattern of ongoing annual adjustments, avoiding to recover the entire amounts in a single year, and instead recognizing the subsidy being provided for the services, therefore increasing the fees over a multi-year period to reach targeted cost recovery levels set by the City Council in 2018. The targeted cost recovery levels are different for the different services. The updated fee schedule was adopted with the fees effective on July 1st, 2018. In accordance with the adopted fee schedule, the fee study, the fees adjust annually by either the Consumer Price Index, CPI, or a flat 5%. Appeal fees. Any person disagreeing with the decision made by the city planner or the planning commission involving application of the municipal code may appeal the decision to the planning commission or the city council as appropriate, and every person filing an appeal shall pay the city such fee as shall be established by the city council in accordance with the municipal code section 17.59. To apply for an appeal, the applicant submits a letter requesting an appeal and should provide details and information that supports their position. City staff reviews the submittal, conducts research, reviews the municipal code requirements, and prepares a report in response to the appeal. The city is also required to send out public hearing notices to surround property owners and properties within a 300-foot radius of the property under appeal. In accordance with the adopted fee schedule, the estimated labor and hours and cost of service totals $1,280. However, the city council chose to target at only 47% of the cost recovery and adopted the fee of $600. The fee adjusts annually using the CPI. The appeal fee is currently $645. This fee applies to an appeal filed to either the Planning Commission or the City Council. The appeal fee may be reimbursed to the applicant if a decision is overturned via appeal, as indicated in the fee schedule footnotes. And then we list out those fees as shown in the fee schedule. Variance fees. In accordance with the Municipal Code Section 17.57, Variances are intended to resolve practical difficulties or unusual physical hardships that may result from the size, shape, or dimensions of a site or the location of existing structures thereon, from geographic, topographic, or other physical conditions on the site or in the immediate vicinity, or from street locations or traffic conditions in the immediate vicinity of the site, or if the strict application of this title will provide such property of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and under identical zone classification. Such a variance shall be subject to the conditions as will assure that the adjustment thereby authorized shall not constitute the grant of a special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity and zone in which the property is situated. Upon application in proper form, such variances may be granted as will not be contrary to the general purpose of the title or the public's interest. The Planning Commission reviews variance applications, and the Commission is required to make specific findings in order to approve the variance. The Commission also has discretion to approve with conditions, or disapprove a variance. City staff processes the application by reviewing it, retrieving missing information, researching the property history, sending out project application and information to other city departments and affected outside agencies for comments and feedback, and preparing the staff report for Commission's review. The city is also required to send out public hearing notices to the surrounding property owners and properties within a 300-foot radius of the property, as well as publish a notice in the local newspaper. The estimated labor hours and cost of services for this process totals $3,840 as described in the fee study. The city's existing fee prior to the updated fee study was only $1,700. The fee schedule targeted 20% of the cost recovery of this service and adopted a fee of $750. The fee for a variance process is currently $827, as the fee increases annually by 5% every July 1st. When applying for a variance, an environmental review is required. The California Environmental Quality Act, otherwise known as CEQA, requires that an environmental assessment be undertaken for all projects that have potential to have an impact on the environment. All development projects have such potential impacts, and so all projects must be assessed under CEQA. The environmental review for projects that pose minimal to no impacts and are categorically exempt is currently $323. Therefore, the total fee collected for a variance application is currently $1,150. The environmental review fee also adjusts annually using the CPI every July 1st. The fiscal impact. The total costs of these applicant-driven processes are what it costs the city to provide the staff and services rendered. Currently, neither the appeals nor variance fees are being collected at 100% recovery. The costs that are not recovered by the fees result in a fiscal impact to the city's general fund revenues. And as you may recall, I had sent an email out last week giving you a direct link to that user study that was adopted back in 2018, because it is incredibly large. So.
Mayor, can I kick this off?
You
since I brought
certainly
it up?
may.
So I think this is a great example of an item that, relies very heavily on these fee studies, right? So if you're going by the information we've just received from the fee study, we're charging way less for these variance fees than we should be. And that's where I disagree. That's where I disagree with the fee studies. I disagree in putting all of our conclusions and all of our knowledge and all our decisions based on these fee studies. And this is a question I've had for some time, and I'm going to need a little education here. But when a fee study is done and it says that this is the cost in labor and time, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's how they break it down?
Correct.
Now, I don't want to come off as sounding rude or anything, but isn't that your job anyways, to review these documents and process this kind of paperwork? How come we're adding a cost to something that is already in somebody's job description?
So these fees help cover those job descriptions, because this is not something that every user in the city is going to need. So when you pay your property tax and the sales tax, that stuff goes to your police departments and some of your public works and administration, but it doesn't cover enough to fund development. So the thought process is that the user fees are established to pay for those instances where it's not common for every resident to need.
Okay, I can understand that. Another thing with these fee studies, and you said you sent us the link and it's very long, that is another great example of why nobody understands what this stuff is, because it's dozens and dozens and dozens of pages and numbers, and trying to figure out exactly what everything costs. And again, if we get we hire a consultant to do a study and they give us a fee study and this is what they come up with, I mean, I'm not okay with just going, well, that's it, that's the law and that's what it says and that's the number they came up with, so that's what we have to do. I look at it and I'm stepping away from the study and I'm saying, if somebody has an issue in town and they want to bring it before the city council or they want to bring it before the planning commission and challenge it and they feel like they have a good argument, I think $1,100 with, $1,150, I think that is excessive. I just think it's excessive for anybody to spend $1,000 to come and discuss why they have a problem with the code and why they think they should get a variance. And then on top of that, if the planning commission doesn't approve it and they want to take another step, it's another $600 and some dollars. So now you're talking about almost $2,000 for somebody to come and bring a concern to the city. So the reason I brought this up and the reason I'd like some discussion is I think those fees, even though the study shows differently, I think those fees are too high, and I think that we should take some action to lower that for the reasons I just described.
All right, anyone else?
I just have a question in what you'd read there on page 258. The appeal fee may be reimbursed to the applicant if a decision is overturned via appeal. Are we currently doing that?
We are.
So if it goes through the planning commission, they said no, it comes to us, and we said yes. Fees paid in both situations will be reimbursed to the applicant.
Not
Just for
only in
council.
the appeal
Just for
fee.
council.
Correct.
So the council appeal would be reimbursed, but because we overrode the planning commission currently, that fee would stand.
The fee for the initial, if, in this case, if the variance fee would still be, they would still have to pay that. They would get reimbursed for the appeal to the city council.
Okay.
If the council overturned
As it
planning
currently
commission.
sits, that's the way it's, okay.
Correct.
And I believe as an appeal, let's say if someone wants to appeal to the council member, and Dominique, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that happened last year. If a council member chooses to take up that potential appeal by that individual wants a variance, they can do that, and I don't believe there's a cost associated with that. Am I right on that, or where am I at on that?
That's been the common practice, correct?
Well, the reason I illustrate that is because at least insofar as the appeal process of the council, we do have an existing mechanism, by which if one of us.
And a council member can appeal it for a citizen without any cost.
They can call it up to the
Yeah.
council.
So that's kind of a unwritten rule that we got, that's on the
It's in the
secret
mus- it's
menu.
in the
Oh,
municipal
sure, no.
code.
It's in the Muni Code, and it's said and stated in the meetings when that happens.
Does
On
everybody-
any planning commission item, it specifically says, unless there is an appeal from the applicant or a council member calls the item forward.
If anybody comes forward with a variance request, is staff letting them know that they can take this route and they can contact one of us to talk to us about it, and so we can bring it up so they could save that $1,150?
So you can't, not the $1,150, that's the variance. We're talking about the appeal fee.
Okay.
So the appeal fee, it is disclosed during the meeting that if the planning commission denied it, it can either be appealed by the applicant or brought up by a council
So
member.
let's just think about it in terms of this way. If you have somebody in town, they make a lot of money, they want to put a fence up, it's too high, they want to appeal it, $1,100 is not a big deal to them. Say you have somebody else in this town, they don't make a lot of money, that's a huge amount of money. That's a huge amount of money. So now it's unfair. It's unfair because if somebody can't afford to come and appeal something that they feel they have a right, and usually these things are property rights usually involved, right? Fences or, hand railings and things like that. I just don't think it's fair. I think it's too expensive. And regardless of what the study says, I think this fee needs to be lowered.
Well, I mean, I guess part of it is that you risk what you can fund for your staff then.
Well, and you know what? I can swallow that, so.
I think a lot of it has to do, it all depends on, you're right, on how much you want to subsidize, an appeal. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of money.
How many
No
appeals come
question
through
there.
every year?
It's not just the appeal we're talking about, though. We're
I'm
talking about
sorry, the variance.
variances.
I
Yeah, how many
The variance.
variances come through?
So I
We have 2 right now that are
We
in
have
process.
2 that are moving forward to planning commission this next month. And so I would say since the studies come in, we've probably had 8 or 9. Appeals, we've had 4.
So how many
That time period.
yearly, like 10, maybe? On average, roughly?
6 to 8,
Okay, 6 to 8 variance requests.
correct.
And then how many variance requests usually go through the appeal? How many get denied on average? Does it kind of random?
It just depends.
Okay.
So.
Well, let's
It
yeah.
just depends on what the topic
Okay.
is and.
Let's say
yeah.
let's say every variance request gets denied and they appeal it and they go before the city council. So now everybody's $1,800 in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So over the course of a year, let's say $1,700 times 8 over the course of a year. I mean, somebody do the math, that was like 20 grand, something like, or am I off on that?
Like 13 to 15.
Okay,
I
$13,000 or
think.
$15,000. And so what we're asking to essentially subsidize out of the general fund for the cost of staff is not it's a rounding error. It's not a lot.
Currently at the current level, but we're already collecting them at only 20%.
I understand that.
Yeah, so at that point, if you were to lower it to that much, I mean, it's much more than that.
So we're already not collecting it anywhere close to what the fee study says.
Correct.
And I'm not aware of this being a huge, a huge budget item that's gonna cause the city to fail. And obviously, there are certain things in the budget that, that are more important than others. This is just one, I am willing to subsidize it, if that's what the study says. I'm willing to subsidize it even more, so that it is more attainable for people to come to the city and challenge the code.
How many known cases do you know about where someone wanted to appeal something, they could not afford it, and they did not appeal it?
None that I know of, yeah.
So if someone was passionate about an appeal, they paid. There's
If
nobody that
they're
walked away and says,
yeah.
I can't afford this, so now I can't do it. My project's out the window, I have to do something different. Everybody who's wanted to appeal has been able to pay.
Correct.
That nobody would come to the city and say, guess what, it's too much, so I'm not gonna appeal it.
If
I
you're
think
passionate about it, you'd
I think
ask.
they would learn, well, possibly, but I think they would learn, oh, that's the cost? I can't do that. I know it comes with, there's other permits, there's other fees in town as far as a conditional use permit that we lowered 50%. It used to be $1,750 or $1,700, we lowered it to $850.
Correct.
Because I personally, years ago, looked at a space in town for a potential venture, and I looked at that going, dang, I gotta pay $1,700 just for the permit, that doesn't even consider anything. And I thought it was prohibitive. And so that's just me in a personal note. And I think this is the same thing. And I think this should be lowered.
Let me ask you a question here. Is it out of the realm of reality if someone came to the city and had an issue with the cost of the inquiry or the variance or whatever he was trying to get heard? Is it possible that they could plead their case to the council? And at the time of their pleading, the council could make a decision on that based on their pleading. And so they might have a substantial situation where it would be prudent for us to let the person not pay the full amount because the benefits of what he may accomplish or she may accomplish could exceed whatever it is we're gonna lose in the possibility of that fee.
Are you saying bypass the planning
Well, I'm not-
commission?
What I'm trying to say is that I wonder if there is a possibility for a mechanism designed for that person that you described who doesn't have the funding for something completely. But, first of all, you have to keep in mind, if they don't have the funding for that, what are they gonna have the funding for? I mean, you're gonna move on to a business venture, you're gonna need money. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But the other thing is, let's suppose they're in a situation where at the time they don't have a lot of money, but they see money coming in or they have money coming, There could be some movement, maybe as a council, we could say, okay, we're looking at this, and we're gonna say, you know what, we're gonna let it go at this rate, this, for now, because of your circumstances are promising, and we'd like to see something like this move forward.
I think that sounds good, that's
I
interesting.
don't want to get into changing rules, to be honest with you. And the reason I don't, Councilman Carmage, is because the rules, unfortunately, as much as I hate them, are there for a reason. And unfortunately, if we don't leave in place, what we run into is a situation where we rob Peter to pay Paul, and then we get into more problems. So all I'm suggesting is, rather than changing any of the circumstances that we currently deal with, that we consider an option where special circumstances were presented to us, and as a council, we could debate that and make a decision.
Well, so that's kind of the theme we're living with, like in bail.
Yes.
You know, posting bail.
Yeah.
You don't want to prevent somebody from exercising their rights, right?
Jeff, can you
Because-
talk in the microphone? I don't know.
Because it's financially, they're not able to pay to exercise some right that they may have.
Correct.
So that's when you've got to balance the person that's just gonna come in and constantly file variances or
Correct.
whatever.
Right.
And create a lot of work for staff just to
Right.
go through the process.
Correct.
And then the person that has a project that maybe can't afford it, you know, can't pay that money up front, that actually has something viable that might be good for the community, you know? But it still requires staff time.
Understood.
So where do you balance that?
That's a
that
good point.
Frivolous, you know, constant attacks, you know, or requests versus, I really can't afford this, but I want to do this because I think it's good
Well,
for my future.
As elected officials of the community, I would think that as this body is trusted to be here, we'd also be trusted to make that decision. So in other words, let's say someone came in and those circumstances were presented to us, we would be able to say, look, given the information we have, and looking at your track record, which means they don't have one, because we don't want somebody like you suggest, who comes down here habitually, always doing the same circus, we don't need that. But if someone came in and presented an argument with substantial support for that argument, I think it's our opportunity to move a step in the right direction to help that individual, provided after his argument was made to us, it made sense. As this body should be able to make that decision.
I think what you're.
That's an extra step in the process,
I think what
too.
I think what you're talking about is maybe adding more to the equation right now, and I understand and I appreciate what you're saying. All I'm asking for is that this fee be reduced, and because of the reasons I said, I don't need to add any new steps or bypass the planning commission. And I honestly, from what we just heard from staff, that 6 to 8 requests a year, it's not overburdened by a bunch of people. I understand the cost is there to recoup some fees and things, and some time, but I'm asking that we reduce this, 50%, 25%, something that will make it more attainable for people to come and exercise their rights, and to challenge the code. That's all I'm asking for. And again, just from what we've heard, it's the city is not gonna take a huge hit on this. They're not gonna take a huge hit.
Well, I think just to bounce off what Mayor Pro Tem Legero and Mayor Alves was saying about striking that balance, I think back in 2018, I think Mayor Alves, I think all of us were in the very same position that you're in now. Like, gosh, dang, that seems awful high. And we want to go over this. So that's why you and I had the gentleman, forget his name,
Terry Madsen.
Yeah, literally. We sat in with him, and that is a very long document, okay? Because we went through the whole thing with a fine-tooth comb, and he was willing to do it, and he did it. I have the really good feeling he rarely has to do it, but he was willing to accommodate us. And I think that what the two of you had said about seeking that balance, knowing that we also have these other mechanisms by which to come to a council. I think there's a reason why we came to the conclusion that we came for that fee. And that was after, again, a lot of skepticism, a lot of learning how the process works. And this is, I think, the best compromise that we could find. You're right, to Mayor Pro Tem's point, not to get frivolous variances in there, but also to try to, make sure that the city doesn't take everything out of the general fund for these situations, and also to hopefully not have it be too terribly expensive to the serious person who wants to have a variance.
I understand that, and just to respond really quick, again, what you're going back on is you're putting all of your faith in the fee study, that the man went through it line by line, and here's what it costs. And, you know, call me naive, but I just don't agree with it. I just don't agree with it. And I don't believe the fee study is accurate. You know, I'm not an expert in this stuff, so again, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But that being said, I guess we have to open it up for public comment as well before I make a motion on any stuff. Okay.
All right, does anyone else want to add to this conversation before I get it to the public? Okay, we're gonna move it out to the public. Is anyone in the public interested in making a comment regarding the issue we're discussing? And we got Mr. Haskin.
Gary Haskin.
Thank
for
you.
Those who don't know me.
One for all for one.
I think what it breaks down to is I've been on this, we've gone through fee studies and everything else. You're subsidizing a few at the cost of many. And that's what it breaks down to. It's already half the cost. If you did the full cost, which was about $1,100, 10 a month, that's $10,000. Now you're talking a year, you're talking $120,000. That's a lot of subsidy. It's not 20. It's more like 120 if you want to go to zero. It's just a matter of how far do you want to go? Do you want to go at all? Is the fee now subsidized enough? In my opinion, property taxes do not pay for city services. They never have, they never will. So every new house we build costs us money. Now, if we're gonna cost money on the other end too, it's just gonna add up, and that general fund will go down, we'll be into reserves, which nobody wants to see. So it's a matter of, you know, how much do you wanna subsidize an individual at the cost of the whole city?
What do you mean property taxes don't pay for city services? Can you elaborate on that?
Property taxes do not cover the cost of city services.
So
The city.
municipal
I'm
service
missing
review will pretty much show that when you build a house, the cost that, or the money that you get from property tax do not cover the cost of services that it takes to provide to that house.
Over a period of time, it doesn't. In the
No,
beginning,
annually.
No.
Well, in the
Every-
beginning, when you build a new home, the fees collected cover for what, a year?
No, I mean, no, you
Wait a
look
minute,
at
wait
it
a minute.
annually, what you get for the property tax, and there's usually a deficit of $150 per household.
So what you're telling me is the
Or
actual cost?
that's wrong, I know that's a wrong number, but it is not covering the cost to provide for a police department, to provide for your public works, to provide for your administration. It doesn't cover those costs.
Well, if property taxes don't cover those costs, what covers those costs? It's a combination of property taxes and sales tax.
Yes.
Those are the two funding mechanisms for everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
and your other fees, that's why you charge business license, that's why you charge user fees.
That's why they charge the variance fee.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have those, you go deeper and deeper in the hole. So, thank you.
The cost of doing business is expensive. Now, if you want to figure out how to lower the cost of doing business, you might be able to lower those other things. That's something you might want to focus on. Anyone else out there have something to say before we move on here? Okay, we're bringing it back. Anyone else have something they want to add to this? There may or may not be a motion.
Is there time to, or is it time to revisit this? You know, have there been enough changes since 2018 to where we probably should look at these again? Think about the CPI, whether we want to include a CPI adjustment. I don't know.
Yeah, that's another idea too.
I mean, typically when you look at a fee study, it's good for 5 years. I mean, I don't know that there's been any tremendous changes since 2018, staffing wise. I mean, we're still, I mean, I hold two positions myself, so we're not fully funded, you know, 2+ positions. So, I mean, if the council wanted to review them, you know, we could do another study, but it wasn't on staff's agenda to do that.
How much would a study cost as opposed to what we're charging for fees to even consider it?
I can't remember what we paid for the last study. You're probably looking right around 15,000.
Yeah.
What about what about a conversation with Mr. Madsen? You have one or two council members have a conversation with Mr. Madsen just to test the waters to see if it's worth revisiting or something like that.
Well, it didn't go down.
Well, he would have to, I mean, to test the waters in what regards?
So talk to him about what's happened over the last 3-4 years. You know, is it worth taking a look at this study? The numbers, the CPI adjustment, things like that. Just have a general discussion, I think, to answer some of Peter's questions so that he can have a better.
I don't know what he would charge us for his time to do that.
I guess my question with that study, though, let's say he totally messed up in 18 and overinflated what he said it cost us to do something by 50%. We're still not covering the cost of our labor and time and effort. I'm not in favor of reducing any fees. At best, I might consider, in my opinion, of maybe doing that next level if it gets to the point of us, we reduce and either cut it in half or eliminate that $11.50 that's currently not on the board for reimbursement. That's as far as I would go. But if you're doing a project and you get the money, if you want it bad enough, you'll find it. Everybody has so far. And
It's not always a project. They may just want to put a wooden fence up that's 6 feet and it's got to be 3 feet, you know. It's not always a huge thing.
no, if they're passionate about it, they'll do it. If they're that convinced that they're gonna get the result they want.
I guess, I
That's
think,
my opinion, though, but
I don't agree with the fee study. I think this is too high. And, so I would make a motion. Can I make a motion?
Yeah, go for it.
I would make a motion that we reduce the variance fee by 50% and the appeal fee by 50% moving forward.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Seeing no second, motion dies, lack of a second. All right. Any more discussion, gentlemen? Okay, having no more discussion, can we move on to council communications now?
That is the next agenda item, yes.
Very good. Let's start with Councilman Swift. What do you got?
Why me first?
Because I figured get it out of the way.
Okay, well.
Robert, you want me to take that for you?
Huh?
Do you want me to take it for you?
No, no.
Okay.
I was just thinking maybe we ought to, I just wanted to know what you guys thought about maybe bringing up the possibility of maybe reintroducing, maybe rediscussing the whole concept of, the blue curbs, and maybe just taking another look at that policy and as one way to maybe see what we can do about that.
I like it. You'd get my support.
Yeah, the problem with the blue curb is there's no limitations to it. So if you put
That
a
is
blue
true.
curb, anybody
Well,
with that.
Couldn't you write it in, though? The
Well,
limitations?
I don't know.
I
It
don't
should be
think you-
restricted on a public parking area.
Yeah, I know.
But we could revisit it, but I'll follow up that when it's my turn.
Okay, then.
All right, but you are correct. Yeah, that does not guarantee it's their own little special spot. Right.
Okay.
Create a different problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's usually what we end up doing. What do we got next? Anything else?
Well, that's it. I just didn't know if we'd like to entertain that thought and
I like the
put
idea.
on the next
I like
meeting's
the idea of
agenda, or
thinking
maybe
about
a couple meetings from now. I don't know what the timetable is right now.
But that's,
I know we're getting close to budget time, so.
okay, all right. Hold that thought, because we'll come back to that. All right, Councilman Bellinger.
Not a lot. Just probably a question you've been asked 4 million times, Tammy. Sorry to be another person on that list. Any movement on park feet for the rest of the community to see if there's any update other than?
One of my questions, thank you.
Sorry, I took that from you.
So, I've heard that the state is supposed to be coming out with some guidelines for festivals. But when those come out, I don't know. It sounds like after June 15th, we should be able to have it. But the state hasn't put it out, so I really can't say. The health officer has said that there's been discussion about these guidelines, and that they anticipated they would be out last week. So I don't know what that means. It's still going through the state's legal review or where it's at.
But it's usually the second Saturday of the month, right, in July? Is that the normal?
Friday, Saturday, yeah.
Friday, Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
It may be longer than that this year because of circumstances. We may go into a later mode if we get it done.
You mean later in months?
No,
Oh.
in that month.
That'd give us about
Oh,
3.5
I get
weeks.
it, okay.
If we waited until then, that'd give us about 3.5 weeks if we kept it.
And I don't know
at
that that's
date.
enough for organizers to secure.
Alcohol licensing and that kind of stuff.
Well, I would imagine ABC is gonna be flooded once these,
As soon as the floodgates are gonna hit, yeah.
the guidelines are released, because then they're gonna have something to go by, because right now, their hands are tied just as mine are, because you don't have any guidelines to support the activities. Now, there is an option to do the activity, but you would have to fence your whole event in and control, the attendance. So you would have to limit occupancy in your event. You'd have to monitor everybody as they came in. You're supposed to sell tickets virtually.
More cops.
Those kinds of things.
Do we have an estimated number of how many people generally attend Park Feed? Do we have
Well, the
any idea?
parade's the big one. The parade's the big
Right, I
guy.
get that. I'm just curious what our numbers are and
Oh,
what said event
it's never been
numbers would
overwhelming, I'll
requirement
tell
would
you
be
that.
reduced below that number and how bad that would be.
Yeah.
It's not overwhelming.
Okay, that's all I had.
Councilman Crummage.
Well, I think it's, first off, I brought up a couple years ago, I think, the bathroom out there at Hogan Park, and we had talked about just sort of redoing some of the fixtures and having the city kind of redo it, and I think we did that. But I remember at that time, I said, you know, we should really get a new bathroom in here, and at the time, the cost was too much, and but I'm very happy to hear that we've moved forward on the bathroom project. I think that's gonna be a great thing. Very excited about the movement with the developers coming to the city and the different projects that are in the works. I think that, you know, if we set our sights on something and we wanna find a way to get it done, that it's gonna happen. And I think this is a big need that we gotta keep pushing forward. I had a question about the body cameras for the police. I know we talked a little bit about it. Is there any progress moving forward with the cloud-based services?
We're still working on quotes. We did have a demo and we've got half of the situation quoted. I'm still waiting. I sat through a demo for the other half of it. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me with hard numbers.
Okay, thank you. And as to the proposed quote for the wastewater treatment plant, wish Kurt was here. This is kind of one of his favorite topics too, but $1 million for the engineering. $1.4 million. Yeah, it sounds like that project is becoming more and more unreachable. And I just want to ask tonight quickly for some clarification. As far as the capacity used out there from the cannery across the street, I know we've talked about how much waste they send there, and I think it was like 80% of capacity or something crazy like that. Can you guys give me any information on that right now? How much they send? How much is our wastewater treatment plant being used for that facility alone? Right.
So for during their season,
right,
which is typically like July through October, beginning November sometimes. There's two sides to the plant, so there's a domestic side and an industrial side. So
Right.
on the industrial side, they are approximately using 80% of that capacity.
Right, and even though it's only for a season, that is a huge amount being sent for our wastewater treatment, which inhibits the overall capacity of that site.
It doesn't prohibit domestic unless you were to try to expand your domestic on your
Well,
industrial side.
haven't we converted some domestics to industrial? We've done something like that, haven't we? We're sending some of
No, we actually have converted an industrial pond to domestic in our percolation ponds,
The
but
reason
not
I'm-
in the treatment ponds.
The reason I'm bringing it up tonight is I wonder if we should explore the option of speaking with the industries here, the cannery, about the possibility of them, and remember that's Kraft Heinz, that's a big company, about them building their own treatment plant for their business. I talked to a couple people about this recently, and it's not outside the scope of reality that they could treat their own things, have their own percolation ponds to treat their waste, and therefore freeing up our wastewater treatment plant. And that might be an option to look at as opposed to spending $1.4 million on simply a study, not even the construction or the rehabilitation of that site.
Well, I mean, there's gonna have to be improvements at our site of some level.
Sure.
Because it's antiquated
I guess I'm looking
methods
at
out there right now.
maybe mitigating the flow going there. That might be an option to look at, is all I'm saying.
Sure.
Maybe they could fully treat their own stuff and not send it.
Retreatment of some form
Re-
whatsoever, yeah.
Exactly. I think that's something to look at.
Well, I don't think that they have the land available to dispose of their own waste at this time.
Okay.
So, and then in order for them to put that mechanism in place, I mean, you're probably looking 5 to 7 years out, at least, at minimum.
Sure. Okay. I think that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay.
What do you think there, Pro Temp? What do you got?
So, is there anything that prohibits the city granting an easement to somebody to put handrails in our right-of-way if there's no projected sidewalk project? So if we grant an easement that is subject to, future construction of a sidewalk and that, does that solve our temporary problem that we have on Yosemite?
You're talking about an easement on an easement, because it's not usually done. More of a license might be the right terminology. But then I think you would still need to modify your municipal code, because the code says no private obstructions on a public easement, which makes perfect sense. So the short answer is, I don't think an easement on an easement would work. Potentially a license, I'd have to look at it, but that would still require modifying the code.
So that might be a better use of our time to look at something like that, as opposed to the blue curb policy to address this issue. And it's pretty clear that citywide, there is no real concern about our easement. People have landscaped and done all that. We saw plenty of pictures today. So it might be worth trying to fashion something that would allow for that, but still not give anybody any, prescriptive easements or ownership of the property or some right to continue to use the easement in that particular way. So I would want to look at options that might address that.
May I ask a brief question on that subject?
Sure.
So those first 4 feet along the sidewalk, that's our easement, correct? And you can't have any private obstructions on the easement?
It's different depending on the width of the road, but
Okay.
roughly the sidewalk that we're required to put in, the sizing of a sidewalk has to be 4 feet, 2 inches wide
Because it
From the
looks,
curve?
from the curb.
can we have public obstructions on the easement? Because it looks like right now we have a PG&E pole and 2 public signs
Well, yeah, 'cause
blocking
it's-
that easement already.
It's our easement, and so we can put stuff in
We
it
can do
because
that.
we own the easement.
But those don't completely block off.
They don't block, yeah.
You go
I
around
mean,
them.
you can go around, you can maneuver around.
What are they blocking
The
off?
handrail, you
But
can't really
the question you have to
maneuver
ask
without
yourself-
going
Into the street.
What are
into
they
the street.
blocking off? There's no walk there. There's no sidewalk. They're not blocking anything.
It's the idea that somebody's walking down that area and everybody is pretty confident in that section of the area being sidewalk, even though the sidewalk's not there, so most people don't want to walk in the street.
Most people don't walk on
So
people's
they'll
lawns.
walk in that first portion along the curb because everybody knows that that's a public area. Sidewalk isn't
I had a,
that property, yeah.
can I just pick out real quick off that? What if you just made the slope less? So instead of doing anything, because I think the lady was having trouble getting up the curb and the fear of tripping. Is there a way to cut that section and just maybe lay a little bit more smoother piece of concrete? And that way the slope is gentler?
So this brings up something I was just about to mention to Councilmember Swift, was we would like to address, I would like, and I'm sure staff would like, and will address this in the staff report for if the council members want to put this on an agenda, which it sounds like that's.
Because this is not the time or place.
Correct, and these items that you are talking about will be.
Need to be researched.
We'll do our
Included.
best to address that in research
Yeah.
and put it in the staff report so you can have that wonderful.
And maybe
discussion.
staff could reach out to council members for some suggestions on the staff report. How about that one?
Sure.
Because we get from you what you got, and I appreciate that. But I'd like to hear some of the council's ideas. So when it comes from staff to us, it's your ideas accomplished by these gentlemen too, because they have some good ideas. One of the ideas I could come up with is a telescopic railing, where it just, she walks out there, boom, it's in, she's done, she pulls it back. I mean, that would not encroach on anything, not permanently. I mean, obviously, it would allow her the ability to come and go. But that's just an idea we could throw into the study. But anyway, I get your point, Mark, and so having brought that up, we will just, would you guys like to have this come back?
That's a good idea.
Somebody want to make a motion? Or do we need a motion?
No, consensus.
Just a
is
recommendation?
fine. Yeah, we already
I
have it.
prefer that actually to what I originally proposed, yeah.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's see if there's a consensus here. Gentlemen, would you like to have this item come back on the next meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we gonna,
Can they get it done?
then, it's a lot of research to do
Or
on
is
that
July
stuff.
better, because I know the budget time is gonna start booking
Let's
everything
leave it
up.
up to staff to bring it back when they're convenient for them, but let's not make it too long.
Yeah.
So we have to get the response from Mr. Anderson. I'd like to accommodate his elderly mother-in-law if we could, without destroying our own inner city problems that we have. All right?
Right?
I don't know if you-
So we're good with that? Would you have any more?
I do.
Go right
Thank
ahead.
you.
You're welcome.
So, I am very pleased to see some development moving forward and the potential for developer impact fees coming in. A while ago, the city sent out a questionnaire and took a poll of the 3 items that they would like to see, as far as recreation goes in the community. And, one was, improved parking, expanded parking out at the community center. The second one, I'm not sure if I got the order right, probably bathrooms number 1, parking number 2, number 3 was a skate park. So as developer impact fees roll in, plus we still will have, even after we build this, this bathroom, we're still gonna have a couple $100,000 in the recreation fund. I would like to move forward on at least the discussion and start looking at the potential of us moving forward on a skate park out there. And I know where there's funds that we can leverage to help offset the cost with the Parks Foundation. But I think that based on what I continue to hear from the community, what I continue to see out in the community, and the community had voiced their desires that this would be in the top 3 things they were asked about, to give the city the top 3 items. This was one of the top 3. So I think we should explore that as a city to move forward on trying to provide that recreational facility to the community. I think our businesses would appreciate it. I think the kids would appreciate it. And it gives us a place to where these kids can go and actually enjoy a sport that's not traditional sport necessarily.
You want that, the agenda? We can back you up on that agenda item?
So I'm not sure
Like-
when,
Now, I mean.
no.
Oh, okay.
I think it's something that, you know, we want to talk about it in terms of the budget and what we're gonna do as a project maybe for this upcoming year. I know it's a lot of information to put on there, but I think as long as I have a placeholder that we can move forward on a discussion over the next few months, I think that would be appropriate, if that's manageable. I know it's not gonna get to it's not gonna be an item on the budget.
Okay,
That's not gonna happen between now and the end of the year
okay,
for our budget meeting.
right.
But
Exploratory.
certainly, certainly maybe a little bit more than exploratory to find a way to move this forward, based on funding sources that we may get.
That's our problem.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we're looking at projects to list out for the next year. I mean, we have our manager council goals, things like that, so maybe it's something that ends up there, so we can at least continue the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I got.
That's all you got? Okay. Well, let's start with the flyer tonight. The flyer looks like it's pretty good. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just hoping the people of Escalon take the time to give it some serious thought. I think the one thing should be emphasized that by doing it this way, we're increasing the number of people helping us take care of our problem in town here with this funding. Because of the people who drive through this town, they are now becoming part of our town in terms of aiding us in supporting these developments or these different types of improvements for the municipalities we have. So I think that point needs to be driven home hard, that it's a tax, it sucks, but the bottom line is you're gonna have God knows how many people helping with this. So it's an opportunity for us to take advantage of that, and I hope we can, because it's a shame if we don't do that, because it's a nice way to get some funding without the major impact. So that's the first thing. All right, the second thing, park feet. I'll swear to God, nobody wants to have this park feet, because every time I try to get it going, there's somebody putting a flag up. I talked with Debbie Merkin, and initially she went to the ABC and then to the health department. Both of them said, you can have permits, but we don't know when. So I called our assemblyman and talked with them, and they said they'd look into it and they'd get back to me, and they did. And they said, go get them. They'll give them to you. So then Debbie went back and the ABC said, fine, we'll give you a permit. But that wasn't the problem. It was the health department was the problem now. And they were hoping that the city of Escalon could send them a letter. So I had Debbie ask our city manager whether or not she could do that, and her response was no. The council has to make that decision. So council, the problem with giving the letter, of course, is we're still in the red zone. But I don't know if a letter would help or not help, but anything we can do to move this thing forward would be nice. So I don't know if we can technically write a letter and ask for a more definite answer to the fact that we can have that permit for the health department, because of the fact that, first of all, it's in July, and by June 15th is supposedly the cutoff date for this mask mandate we have. And we're probably gonna push it later in July because of the situation where this thing keeps getting bounced around. I'm doing what I can, but I'm not getting a lot of love back. It's frustrating as hell, because a lot of people want it, but it seems like nobody wants to help do it. And I referred to the agencies that we're trying to get these permits from. So I don't know if we can formally request, but Mark, is it illegal or is it inappropriate for us to request a letter from the staff in regards of getting our health permit? And a letter, I don't know how the letter's gonna be structured, but they're telling me they need a letter from the city.
Okay, so if you want to have a consensus for guidance or direction to give to staff, I believe that would be good enough.
Okay.
Well, the mayor could sign the letter too.
I have
As
no
part
problem.
from the council, it could come from the mayor and not from staff.
Well, okay, and that's fine, but according to what we heard, it had to be the council. Is what you told Debbie, or no?
Right, it needed to be consensus of the council to support the letter, because from a staff level, the guidelines don't really support having the event, and so staff was not willing to issue the letter without the support of the council.
Okay, so the council, do we have that support? Is there anyone opposed to this? Go that way. Doesn't look.
What's the letter specifically gonna do?
It's asking for
We're asking for the permit.
Correct.
That's not necessarily obligating us to use it if for some reason we turn the other way and go.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah.
code cases all over the place, we're gonna
Right.
cancel the event.
Right.
It's not necessarily tying our hands to
We're
any
looking for some
liability or anything
sort
like
of.
that.
Right, there's no liability. What we're looking for is some sort of certainty. So the people that are busting their tail to get this thing on the books have some confidence that their time is not gonna be completely wasted. That's where we're at with it.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay.
I think if you write that letter and, the council supports it, I think that.
I think the council should sign it with the mayor,
Yeah, no,
showing the
yeah.
county that we have full compliance in terms of the desire to move this thing forward, and confidence in our community that we can do this project with good confidence. It'll be safe for all of us.
No, I think you do it, but what I'm saying is that don't be surprised if they say, well, we'll give you certainty after June 15th.
And you know what? That's
And
fine.
that's gonna be the answer.
Well,
That's okay.
That might be the answer. I don't know if
But
that's
if we got our
true.
permit up in the queue, if you will, higher up, because of what we do today, then good.
I think we need to
You know.
send the letter with the confidence, with the letter stating that we're confident this can be done in our community safely, and the council supports it 100%. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll direct staff to write the letter, I'll sign it, and the sooner that we get it off, the quicker we can get some response, because we're running out of time.
So do you want just the mayor to sign it, or
No,
did you
we're all
want
gonna sign it.
everybody?
We're all
Or-
gonna sign it.
Okay.
It shows a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's unity.
There is that word, but what's the other one they always like to throw around?
Authority.
There's that, but there's another one. Not camaraderie.
Solidarity, yeah.
Solidarity.
Yeah,
There we go. I knew that word was out there somewhere. I love that word. All right, so anyway, beyond that, we'll get the letter, let us know when we can sign it. Gentlemen, we gotta get on this quickly, so at what point do you think the letter could be ready?
Probably in the next day or two.
Okay, so I would ask you guys to make an effort to come down and sign the letter before the week's out.
I will let everybody know when it's ready.
I'd
so.
appreciate that. Okay, good. Let's move on. The downtown development looks like the ghost town. What's going on?
I have no answer for you there.
Well, that's not a good answer.
Yeah.
Because I think this has gotten out of control. There is fees that haven't been paid and there's no work that's going on. If you want to talk about abuse and you want to talk about all the things that can go wrong, I think I could point to that thing for us.
The end of the month.
It's a joke. This
The
whole
old city
thing.
hall project you're referring to, I'm assuming?
Again, please?
The old city, the police department?
That's
building?
correct.
Thank
I
you.
mean, this is ridiculous.
Clarify.
There's an extension to the developer to the end of this month. So,
So what happens then? Does, at the end of the month, do we take away his property? Does he pay penalties, which he owes us already, which he hasn't paid? I mean, at what point do we have any kind of teeth in what we say to this individual?
well, we have to give them to the end of the month, so then, since that's what we gave them, and then after that, staff can either put it on the agenda, either closed session or open session, and I'll discuss with staff which way it should go on.
Well, what about the delinquent fees? We'll discuss those as well?
Right, because one of the options is a lawsuit to start collecting them, but we will bring all the options, I will make sure to bring all the options to city council after the time has actually expired.
Looking forward to it. End of the month.
Yes.
Okay, so then we're safe to say it, at the end of the month, after one of our meetings, we'll go to a closed session and move on this. We'll investigate it.
Well, I mean, our next meeting is June 7th and then June 14th. So,
Well,
I mean, 21st. Darn it, I keep
I
doing
think we've had
that.
enough time for this thing to slide.
So my expectation is June 4th, was it?
7th.
June 7th, we could provide a staff update as to the status and any delinquency. And then if, at that time, if the council would like to put it on for closed session for June 14th to discuss.
Which is 2 weeks after his deadline.
First.
21st, then,
Now it's 3 weeks after his deadline.
correct.
Why couldn't we move it to the 7th? Why couldn't we have the closed session on the 7th?
I'm just thinking out loud that maybe an update first, but if there has been no action, maybe we'll chat and staff will chat and just put it on for closed session. But if there's some kind of activity, maybe just a staff update might be appropriate first.
You can't imagine how many people ask me what the hell's going on there. And you know what I tell them? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. That's the sad part.
We will have an update for council, whether it's just an update or an agenda item next month.
That's one of the biggest reasons from now on, I wanna see the RFG or whatever we're calling that thing, PQ, whatever. We need to learn to qualify individuals that come to this town. I never wanna ever see a situation like this one ever again. And if it happens, we need to think about who runs this town, because that's wrong. It's terribly wrong. The other question I have for you, on the delinquent properties we have in town, we have, 3 of them. One of them was slated to be terminated, but we didn't do that because of circumstances, legal circumstances. Where do we stand with that one?
Oh, he's talking about code enforcement?
Code enforcement.
I am.
The 2 properties, actually 3 properties.
There's 3 by the same
Well-
right,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dominic.
Okay,
Go for
just
it.
wanted to make sure.
I'll jump in if needed.
So yes.
Go ahead.
The first one that was scheduled for demolition, they had submit plans to address those issues and also add on to the house. And because of the difficulties we were having in moving forward with demolition, either through air pollution and the costs that were gonna be associated with doing the asbestos stuff, and PG&E disconnect for all of the services was months out. We opted to go that route, thinking that it would be faster. We have executed a settlement agreement / stipulation agreement that has specific deadlines in it that they have to meet in order for us not to move forward with further action. And so far, they've been following they're on site with the agreement.
Here's my problem. We've been down this road with these people. They've pulled the same thing before. That's how we got to where we were at. Now we're back around with a new idea that they're gonna listen to us this time. At what point does the city say enough is enough with these type of situations? Because it's frustrating to see it spend staff time. How much time have you put into that project? Tons and tons and tons. Those are hours we're billing for, which you've talked about, and those are the things we don't recover. So how does that work for us?
The difference this time around was they submitted plans from a professional architect, not themselves.
Okay.
That showed that they actually spent some money, and they agreed to a timeline, a specific timeline to actually do the improvements. The idea was we'd rather have the property instead of demolishing it, we'd want the owner to pay to get it up to speed.
Absolutely.
Right. So that owner actually came to the city with plans from a professional, with certain deadlines they said it would get it done by, and therefore the city attorney's office drafted up an agreement that says, fine, you'll get some extra time since you're showing good faith effort to go forward. Here's the timeline, and they signed it and agreed to it. And
So how do we recover all that time we lost, Mark?
Slap a lien on the property.
So let me ask you this. Are there fees that haven't been paid with regards to this situation, and have those been discussed in your agreement with them?
I can't go into that right now. I'll say
Okay.
that agreement that we entered into allows for a collection of fees if they do not comply this time.
Well, let's stop there. You said if they don't comply this time. Well, what does that have to do with the fact that we spent all this time, her time, our money on that? So how do we come out of that thing ahead?
I could discuss that another time.
Okay, I want an answer to that question, because I've seen too much of this. Where we go out with these guys, we got these derelict people in our community who've taken advantage of our staff's time, and we don't get paid for that. But yet we collect $1,100 for people to do this and that. Well, I want that collected too. I am tired of people who step on us and we don't come back with any money, Mark. And it's happened more than a couple times.
Now, the other two properties are in the same situation.
Right.
Where the property owners started talking to each other or seeing what was happening.
So they're jumping on board.
They're jumping on board with entering into an agreement that says, here's the dates, I will pay you back. If not, we could go straight back to court and get an abatement warrant reissued if they don't comply with the deadlines. So all three seem to be, on the third one, entering that settlement agreement now. All three seem to be on board with actually submitting actual information and plans and timelines and.
But you gotta understand
that's where we're at.
how frustrating this is for me, and I don't know about these guys, but I see this going on all the time. I'm going, what are we doing? We bark, but we don't bite. At what point does the city say enough is enough in these situations? I guess that's my bottom line to you.
Well, the city council has already, said enough was enough and issued and authorized the abatement warrants and the tear downs before. So we have said enough, and we went out there and served the abatement warrant, at least one of the properties, and what we got back was actual compliance, which is better than us spending more money.
I
to
agree with
demolish.
that.
So that's where we're at, and of course, if they don't go through, or they do go through, we will update the city council with the progress on those three items. We'll make sure to update you.
I just wanted you to know that I think it's a real shame that we get into situations where we have fees that don't get paid, and we find a way to justify letting those go when other people have to pay all the fees. That's just frustrating, because I've seen that a couple times, and I don't think we should continue that policy. I think it's wrong, because when everyone else is paying, like the people that come in for their variances and they're struggling to make those payments, we got people out here taking total advantage of us. I just think it's the wrong message we need to be sending out there, okay? All right, let's move on to the next thing here. Downtown development, we did that. Blue zone, we talked about the blue zone. We're gonna bring that back for discussion. A while back, we discussed the water money and the pipeline. We decided to set that money aside. My question is, where is that money? And I wanna make sure it's locked up and it cannot be reused for anything else but the pipeline. So how do we do that?
It's in the water fund, it's designated reserved for the water pipeline.
And it cannot be
it's called-
drafted. It may not be drafted or borrowed?
No,
Good, that's what I wanted to hear. All right, next question. Railroad fees, we have, St. John. We have money in there for about $8,000, and that's for what?
I don't even know where that money came from. I think it was, cause that's before my time.
Okay, well, I believe it was for modification of that crossing. The question is, what was the plan for that crossing? Was it we're gonna put an underpass, overpass? What are we gonna do?
Well,
And if we
not for
don't have
the-
a plan, my point is, why can't we take that money and put it somewhere else? That's my point.
I have to research it and see. I don't
I'd
know.
like to know. I think council would like to probably know. Okay, that's out of the way. Local control. Okay, I'm glad that we have new developers interested. I'm glad everybody's hunky-dory and let's build something for the seniors. I'm all for that. I don't like the idea of losing local control. We live here, they don't. So I wanna make sure whatever we do, we fight to keep our local control. Because once you've given it up, you've opened a gate you can't close. Remember that. Community is what it is. You open that gate, you won't close it. I promise you that. So while you're thinking about doing all the things you wanna do them. But remember, the gate's open, it don't get closed. So be very serious about who we let in this city to do what they wanna do. And make sure we do our homework and due diligence to make sure. Because like I said, once they're in, they're not going out. I think that might be it. Is there anything from council other than that? Okay, it sounds like we have a good meeting. Staff, thank you for your indulgence. Crowd, thank you. Have a nice evening. Meeting's over.